holding. I think it's Oscar left, far left. Far left.
There we go.
Okay.
All right, we're live.
We are live.
Almost live.
Almost live.
Give us a countdown. This is the latest famous Monsters of Filmland.
Isn't that
Godzilla
fantastic?
is the whole issue. It's.
I thought it was when I saw the T-shirt. I thought it was a T-shirt for Garrett's movie.
I think.
That's cool.
I think they sponsored the whole issue to talk about the history of Godzilla and all
Right.
the way up to.
That's cool. Oh yeah, it is all good. That's cool.
All right. Skip ad. We need to listen to ourselves.
Wow.
And.
As we chat live with Jim.
All right.
Yay.
Hello, everybody.
Hello, everyone
And
out there in the
welcome
world.
to Torn Tuesday, your weekly dose of everything Hobbit and Lord of the Rings and all things geekery.
All things geekery.
Right. I'm Justin. That's Cliff.
And I'm Clifford. Hello,
and we
everybody.
have a special guest with us today, Jim.
Hello.
Mr. Jim Rygiel, who you guys have known most obviously from his very involved working with the visual effects folks and the Oscars he won for the Lord of the Rings trilogy and working with some of the most talented creative folks down there in New Zealand. Boy, has he got a story to tell. Uh-oh. Uh-oh.
So you not only worked on Lord of the Rings, but you're here because Godzilla just came out. Boom. Look at that shirt.
Godzilla.
It is an amazing film. You know, this is
Yes,
kind
it
of
was.
the year of the fire-breathing dragons. Because you've got kind of Godzilla started it, and then you've got the Dinobots breathing fire. You've got How to Train Your Dragon.
Oh
You've
yeah.
got Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
Cinematically, this is it.
Yeah.
You got to have a fire-breathing dragon.
And then,
have them.
And then in December, we finished off the year with the fire-breathing
Well, at
dragon.
this point, I don't know if Peter will finish off Smaug. Smaug
Oh my
might
God.
survive the third film. At this rate, the way it's going, you never know what's going to happen with
Is he
these
going to
films.
breathe fire? Is that the, that's the rumor?
There might be pennies from heaven, and the people of Lake Town go, "Oh,
Right.
what happened, Smaug?" Yeah, you know.
you're-
I'm stampeding a little bit against the revisionist take on The Hobbit, but I'm not really stampeding.
That's all right.
I'm actually saying we have a lot of things we haven't talked about in many, many years. My friend Jim, we've met and we've interviewed Jim for Ringers, Lord of the Fans, and we've talked to him, and we've stuck a microphone in his face and stuck a camera in his face for so many years now. It is really nice to come back and see you, looking really fit and fine.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
What did Gandalf say? You haven't aged a day. He hasn't. He's got this magic ring hiding in his pocket
Thank
somewhere. How you been?
Good. Just working on the next project, and
Yeah.
I got this great project with Gareth and Godzilla, and it's my last one, and looking for the nest one now.
It's fantastic.
Yeah.
I mean, when all the fans that I was with to see Godzilla that day, extra rounds of applause when we saw, Ethan Van Der Rin.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
And we saw your name and Ethan's name and these familiar names we've been clapping for from the Lord of the
Yeah.
Rings, and we saw so many people like, oh, we know that, yay!
Yeah, Ethan was because obviously I know him just from the show, but it was a funny story because we just finished Fellowship, or I just finished Fellowship basically, and I said I'm going to go to the most deserted island. We went to Fiji, but we found this really deserted island in Fiji, right?
Oh my
Nice.
gosh.
And there was no phones at the place or anything. So it was beautiful. So we go out there and we take a plane to a bus to a caravan, all over the place. And I unpack and I start walking to the pool, and there's Ethan there. And I'm like, no, what
In
the
the most
hell?
remote corner of the most remote.
Most remote, farthest away. Didn't tell anybody. I said, "What are you doing?" And it was one of those. What are you? What? Right, and then the other thing. So that was funny. But then
That's
that same day, I was. I said, "Okay, hi, Ethan." Yeah. So then I was kayaking out just in the ocean, just really calmly. And then one of the Fijians came yelling at me, "Mr. Jim, Mr. Jim." And I said, "What?" He said, "You have a phone call."
On a deserted island.
Supposedly without phones,
Yeah.
right? And so I went and kayaked back in and went up, and it was Barry Osborne, the producer.
Barry, really?
Yeah.
He was calling you?
And I said, "How?" Because I didn't tell anybody. I said, "How the hell did you find me?" And so what it was,
I told you had stories. I love it. That's good.
Yeah, and what it was, unfortunately, was I booked my travel through the production booking company, so it wasn't too far of a stretch. But
anyway. Okay.
Yeah. And it was nothing. It's just like, well, I can wait till you get back. So
we can get these shots through after you get back, right? That's so funny.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. So Jim, as a visual effects supervisor, you've been doing this your whole career, 20 plus years.
Yeah, 30 plus years.
30 plus years. Holy smokes!
Yeah.
And he worked on all 3 Lord of the Rings. In fact, you won the Oscar for all 3 Lord of the Rings. You're the only group like
Randy Cook won.
Yeah.
Who was the animation supervisor? Yeah.
That's right.
He got all 3.
Wow.
And,
not even Howard Shore got all 3.
No.
I mean, wowzer.
Yeah.
No,
Howard's with all the start stops with the Hobbit, Guillermo was on it, and then he was off of it, and then MGM was like, we're bankrupt, we can't do anything.
What are we
so
gonna do?
You ended up taking a couple other movies like Amazing Spider-Man.
Yeah,
right?
Eagle Eye, all kinds of little things. I was on one show, Chronicles of Narnia, or the Voyage of the Dawn Treader. Sorry.
The third one.
Yeah, the third one. Yeah, so I was on that thing, and I was on there for 2 years, and we never shot one frame of film. So in one way, it was a bad thing because I wasn't getting any shows out. I was just sort of stagnant. But the best part is we went around the world twice for 2 years, scouting.
Wow.
Scouting, and they'd sort of settle here, and we'd be at Malta, and then they said, just a week before I was ready to move, they'd say, no, we're not shooting at Malta anymore. And they'd say, oh, Iceland, we're going to go to Iceland. No, we're not going to shoot at Iceland anymore. Oh, let's go to Australia. Okay, Australia. No, we're not going to shoot there anymore. And then we had finally headed down to Rosarita, in Mexico, which has the big tank where they shot Titanic.
Yeah,
so beautiful stages.
Right next door.
Yeah, it was awesome. That's where we were going to shoot, and it's perfect. And then our art department was down there, and just as we sort of got there, they said, we're not going to shoot there anymore. I go, now what? He said, well, there were 30 beheadings in Tijuana that month.
Oh.
So I'm like, good call. Thank you for that. Yeah, because they had the big drug cartels.
And that third movie was the first one that Disney didn't option. That was over at Lionsgate?
No, I was on it. I was on it with Disney.
When Disney still had it.
So Disney had it for 2 years, and then they dropped it, and then about a month I went on to other things, and then a month or two later, Walden picked it up.
Walden Media, but Walden Media hasn't approached a fourth Narnia film after that third one. And I thought that Prince Caspian was mighty good.
Yeah,
I thought Prince Caspian was mighty good out of those 3. But the thing is, they send you around the world twice, but they can't put you to work. Isn't that amazing?
It's like I said, it's terrible on one level, but it's great on another. It's like, oh, where are we going to?
So if you were at Disney and that was a tentpole of tentpoles at Disney, was there any hints or inclination at that time that Disney was about to acquire Lucasfilm and Marvel?
Oh, that was a few years before that.
Okay. Lucasfilm hadn't happened.
Lucasfilm just happened recently.
Yeah.
It was. I want to almost think that they didn't. They didn't even buy Pixar at the time. So this was like 2008 maybe or something. Anyway,
it seems like a long history. But I mean, driving forward the conversation to the most recent thing you did with Godzilla, and I'm a kaiju fan, and I love these original Toho films,
right?
Because in many ways, my co-host Justin laughs at me, but it's true. As much as I'm a Tolkien-ophile, and I love all these things that are Lord of the Rings-ish and Hobbit-ish, I'm a big Japanophile.
Right.
So we can talk about Miyazaki films and Toho Godzilla films all day long. I'm there for that. Really?
Glad you could. Well, because I don't know that.
But you've got this hot young director who just finishes a $500,000 film.
Right.
And then
one film. That's just
one film.
One film.
Right.
I know, exactly. This is and when you're texting, you say IKR. I know, right? It's like I know, right? So the man comes to you guys, and they're gonna back him. They've got this project together. And what kind of a drive? What kind of an impetus does he bring?
I saw it very parallel to Peter with Lord of the Rings. Because when I first said yes, and I'll go check it out, and they'd fly me to New Zealand to meet with Peter and all that.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, well, what did he do? He did Brain Dead, Meet the Feebles.
Yeah.
You know, these weird B movies, you know?
So they were in the Blockbuster in the section you weren't allowed to go to as a kid.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm thinking, wow,
exactly.
You know, I guess I'll go down there for a year and do the movie, you know, because that's what it originally was, right?
Yeah.
But then I remember, you know, I saw Heavenly Creatures, and I'm like, there's something there.
That surprised everyone. That film surprised everyone.
Fantastic.
It is. It is absolutely
and
fantastic.
so I went down, you know, thinking I was going to go down to New Zealand and have to bring all the work back to the U.S. Because how could I ever get any work done in New Zealand, right? Yeah. In Wellington, right?
This is when all visual effects was pretty much done in L.A.
All done in L.A., exactly. And so it was interesting. I was on a plane sort of thinking that the whole time. I'll come back to the Godzilla
of course.
thing too.
Yeah, of course.
And then
I love a good Lord of the Rings story. We do.
Yeah, and then I sat down and, you know, was it Matt Aiken and Steve Rygiel and all the guys on there? They gave me a little dog and pony of what they were doing, and in my mind I was sold right there. You know, I was like, wow, you know, because they're doing like cloth and hair sims when and Massive when nobody was doing that sort of stuff before.
Massive hadn't been announced yet.
It hadn't been announced, and and
for those that don't know, Massive is the computer program that allows the armies, like the massive amounts of
to automatically battle one another.
And crowd simulation.
It wasn't really used in the first movie. It was mostly in Helm's Deep.
Right. That's right. So, you know, I like, wow. And then I saw the you know, sort of the stuff that they were shooting, and I'm like, I'm on. You know, sign me up. And it was sort of the same thing with Gareth, where, you know, he did this movie called Monsters. I'm like, really? And I was going to watch it, and I was like, what's this going to be about? And I watched the movie, and I'm like, wow. You know, and then you see the credits, and directed by Gareth Edwards, produced by Gareth Edwards, production designed by Gareth Edwards, by Gareth Edwards. And I'm like, oh, he might know something about it, you know, about movie making.
He's proficient in ZBrush, right?
Oh yeah,
he's proficient in all these softwares.
Well, when we were doing the show, can I have the mouse? Can I have the mouse? You know, he started grabbing the mouse out of the artist's hands, and it's like, here, if you do this, and you know, so
brilliant.
He was, as much as he could be hands-on, he was hands-on.
That's brilliant.
But it was the same sort of vibe, and then you know, so here's this relatively unknown director who did these couple of weird movies.
Yes.
And then I saw the Comic-Con piece that he did, the 2 minutes, and I just said, where do I sign? You know, I'm on, please.
Yeah.
You know. Yeah. I mean, because that thing was just, if this is what the movie's going to look like, I'm here.
I agree.
And so,
wow.
Yeah. And so
that was before any of the rest of the world had seen the Cannes footage.
Right.
That's what blew us away.
Right. You mean on Lord of the Rings?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, you want me to tell a story about that?
Yeah, please, because there must have been a crazy deadline to get that.
Yeah.
Wait, before the Cannes footage, didn't Peter release that like This Is the Time trailer?
That's the one he was talking about, the 2 minute.
No. I'm talking about Gareth and the Comic-Con piece that he did for
Godzilla.
Yes,
where all you saw was the scale
and the dust blowing off of them, and I'm like, and then the roar. You know, it's like, sign me up, right?
Yeah,
that was I don't remember the other one you're talking about though.
Well, I guess in the early days.
It was like 2000, 2001.
It was 1999, actually, right around the time when Daily Variety had a double-page spread saying, we're shooting in New Zealand, like starting blah, 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 blah. Yeah. There was a little teaser thing, an early teaser, with an awful temp score that became infamous.
And movie voice guy.
And a movie voice guy, really, in a world.
Wow.
And it was him showing a couple of alignments of marching armies in a dark field. There was and there wasn't any
kind of like early.
I do remember that. You'd see like the heels of these guys sort of off in the distance.
Yep.
And then some of the like before they put the rubber over like some of the skeletals of the creatures,
right?
And some of the digital skeletals of some of the cave trolls, and it was just kind of like the technology is now caught up. And that was our first kind of.
And they put that like on.
They put it
television
online. I remember.
Did they have online back then?
We did. We just started. Yeah,
it took 2 hours to download.
Right.
28K.
Wow, I'll have to look for that again.
It was one of the things that got a lot of attention when the fans wanted to find news like that. They would find it on TheOneRing.net. Wow. But it was kind of mind blowing. And again, Peter engages the audience at the level of technical things. Like Peter gave early footage of an unexpected journey to talk about, the 48 frames per second. And there's Peter coming at it from a... So is Gareth always like that? Is he coming at storytelling from a technical perspective as well?
No.
Oh, okay.
No, he's not. He's just purely for the, the characters and the story. And that's why I think he was one of the big contenders for getting the show.
Yeah.
Is it was, As Monsters is about the two characters and their story.
Yes.
With this sort of hidden illegal alien side to it, right? I mean, that was awesome, right? I'm watching this thing. It's like, oh, cool. It's like, and we built a big wall across the U.S.-Mexican border. It's like, oh, I get it now. Even though he denies there was anything about it, but it was cool. And then there's the aliens, right? But yeah, so
we're getting text from the hotline. We have a hotline.
That Comic-Con footage of Godzilla. I mean, there was so much atmosphere there.
Right.
And I've seen other interviews where you've done where you talk about atmospheres like one of the most important things. It felt like it was you were already on the film, but you weren't yet.
Not for the Comic-Con piece.
Okay.
I came in, because that was something that I think Gareth used as sort of a sales tool to get him again. The project itself, and then they were going to do this thing, once they signed up, they said we want something for Comic-Con, sort of an unannounced Comic-Con piece, and he worked with MPC to sort of put that together. Yeah, but speaking of the Lord of the Rings and Godzilla again too, Gareth was telling me, that when he was doing Monsters, right? So he would shoot this stuff sort of ad hoc, him and two other guys or whatever.
Yeah,
and then he went back to London and he started doing the effects. He started doing the monsters behind, and then he did a lot of like really cool like set extensions and tanks and CG. So they had nothing basically. He did all that stuff in his apartment
by himself.
By himself, right?
Wow.
What was he rendering on?
Like a PC. I mean, it took him forever to do it probably, but he said I got a secret to tell you. When I was doing that, the making of Lord of the Rings was on a loop in the background. So it'd be playing on his monitor and it'd be me talking. He said, I watched you. I know everything you said on there.
Oh, no way.
Oh, my God.
Which I don't even know everything I said.
But
that was a great honor for him to say that.
So awesome. There is an actual direct, like...
Oh, yeah.
That wouldn't have happened without...
Yep. Probably not. Yeah.
You know what? I have to say I really like the Godzilla that he delivered, and he understands what the fans wanted from that film.
Right.
He really understood that.
Right.
The science doesn't get in the way.
No.
None of the other characters get in the way of what we wanted, this Monster Fest.
Right.
And I loved that. That was really refreshing.
Yeah.
And different from the Roland Emmerich film, where the whole narrative is so bogged down with all this stuff that you don't care about.
Well, it was interesting because even as we were shooting it, right?
Yeah.
So, you got Bryan Cranston, all the actors.
It was a blessing to have.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
Fantastic. They were all really good,
Yeah.
And so he's shooting it, and then literally, almost every couple of weeks, Gareth would look up to me and goes, this movie's called Godzilla, right? Because we never see any creature. It was just, and that showed, it was just all about the characters, and his focus was getting their action right.
Yes.
And the effects in Godzilla getting that right was going to come later.
Yeah.
Which, rightfully did. Yeah.
So were you involved on the shooting stage? Were you on set or?
Oh yeah. We were there every day. So
really?
Yeah, up in Vancouver.
Nice.
No shows get made here anymore. So
I know how that happens.
Yeah.
So no bigatures. I guess the age of bigatures is gone.
Yeah.
I guess.
You kind of saw the writing on the wall when you were doing Return of the King. There were less and less kind of physical models in play.
I'm sort of.
Well, there was a huge outdoor set that Minas Tirith.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, they definitely built sets. We built sets too. For Godzilla. So there's that. But I'm sort of slightly sad that miniatures are going away because I still think they bring texture that you can't get in CG yet, and we were doing a lot of things like with particularly in Return of the King, where Alex Funke would shoot the miniature. Peter would Peter would bless the move with Alex, and they'd shoot the miniature and light it, and we'd have these multiple passes, so they'd shoot like 20 passes of little flames and, you know, beauty light and atmospheric light and cloud layers, and so we shoot all these many layers and then layer them all up together. And one of the things we would do to sort of bring it a little bit out of the locked miniature look is we were mapping a lot of that stuff onto CG buildings. So even though we had the move going on, we would take that, map it onto a CG world. So essentially it was all CG.
Yeah.
And we did the same in Godzilla, where we shot San Francisco, real buildings, and we mapped it onto a CG world.
Really?
So it's real photographs of the city or real photographs of the miniature, rather than having to make every little doorknob and windowsill of San Francisco or of Minas Tirith or whatever, you know.
Right.
So it's getting more into that.
When you do the scene like the Honolulu scene, and it's a very clear night sky, and you don't have a lot of other things like, you know, the intrusion of cloud and dust effects, is it easier in ways to do a shot like Destroying Honolulu? And how did you approach that?
It doesn't really matter whether there's things there or not. I mean, we end up either replacing it or adding to it, or in fact, you know, I sort of talked to Seamus and Gareth, and I said, just shoot it like you're going to shoot a regular film. Okay. You know, don't worry about, you know, we have to keep this clean because now, you know, and I know the artists hate this, but rotoscoping, and I learned this on Lord of the Rings, where we rotoscoped everything, is so good these days.
Yes.
That it does look better than green screen at times, even though it's painstaking to have to roto every hair, every frame on somebody.
Yeah.
You just get the real natural lighting, and this is one thing Gareth was a big stickler for. It's like, do we really need green screen? I'd love to shoot the whole thing without green screen.
Yeah.
So we did have a big green screen, unfortunately, for the big Golden Gate Bridge sequence, because you know that was all set. We could just leave it there, and there was many shots on this one layer. But most of the film, I think, we shot with rotoscoping involved. So all that atmosphere and smoke, you know, when they're running through it, the guys would have to roto through that smoke. I mean, it's like the most hideous thing you could ever imagine.
So that's smoke on set.
That's smoke on set. Yeah, and they would have to, like, you know, paint around it or blend into it or something. But, you know, and I apologize to all the artists that worked on it, but they did a great job. I mean, as you can see, you know, the work came forth on the screen.
That's amazing. It does. It looks amazing. Yeah. And it's funny, when you say the word rotoscoping, I'm immediately reminded of Ralph Bakshi's rotoscoping in his animation approach to the Lord of the Rings. Another term
called animated rotoscoping.
It was animated rotoscoping because, and we learned this talking to David Carradine before he died. He actually said, I went down to visit Ralph Bakshi where he was on set. They were live shooting all the photography for The Lord of the Rings, 1977 or 78 rather, and then they were going to rotoscope the animation over.
Rotomated. So they were going to. It was always going to be a animated film.
Yes.
So it's sort of like the way they did Rango. They shot Johnny Depp doing his thing, and then
they actually had the artists who could cell paint right over photographs that had been transferred onto a cell. Oh, cool. And it looks very weird, but you say the word rotoscoping in terms of Lord of the Rings, and I remember it used back then in the 70s. Boy, we've come a long way, baby. Like Virginia Slims.
Rotomation is basically you film your movie and then you're drawing on top of it. Rotoscoping is kind of like when you have Photoshop and you want to cut yourself out and put yourself in a different place, but doing that at 24 frames per second.
Right.
We're talking thousands and thousands of photoshopping.
So it's literally true. If
every little hair that comes out.
If you had to do Godzilla in 48 frames per second, you would have twice the work.
Yeah.
Literally.
You have twice the work,
Man, oh man.
I heard Jim Cameron's doing 96.
What?
Yeah.
On the next Avatar?
That's what I heard. Propagating the rumor, but
he keeps talking about
super high
transmedia. Like, we're gonna throw this in Disneyland, and whatever we shoot's gonna go everywhere.
And isn't Doug Trumbull doing one at 120 or something? I think?
Oh my god! Well, Doug has always been at the forefront of. And there's like some stuff happening with Walking with Dinosaurs, like the latest Walking with Dinosaurs BBC thing was this kind of real-time rendering engine. They're like using a game engine to render the dinosaurs.
Sure, yeah.
That sounds
real
interesting.
like it's all photorealistic.
Yeah. No, that's definitely getting there now.
When do you think we'll be at the point where, you know, like people like Andy Serkis and actors in costume and stuff like that, even Pirates of the Caribbean, where you can do real-time animation, mocap animation with cinema quality graphics? Will we ever get there?
You know, I say yes. You know, because I from working many years back, I never thought we would be where we'd be now. You know. So yeah, it's just a matter of, you know, how fast can you get the machines and the rendering tools, and that is all happening. Some stuff is starting to look really great now. I mean, you know, I play Red Dead Redemption, and it's like it's awesome. You know, it's like you can run anywhere and shoot anything, and it's all interactive. You know, it's not when I did Castle Wolfenstein and you're sort of just going through the squares coming at you. You know.
Anybody remember The Seventh Guest? Remember that show? I mean, not the show, the game, the PC game. Nobody remembers The Seventh Guest.
Pre-rendered FMVs.
Yeah, that was from Interplay. It was around the time when Myst, with a Y, became such a phenomenon.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, The Seventh Guest was right next door, competing for shelf space with that program. But I was a PC gamer. I couldn't help it. Boo. Sorry. Sorry, guys. But
so we got a lot of fans in the chat room.
We do have a lot of fans in the chat room. Before we get to the fans in the chat room, you've worked on huge science fiction, fantasy films. You've worked on comedy too. You worked on an Adam Sandler film.
Yeah.
Click, right?
Yeah.
And you've worked on, you know, big things like Narnia and Lord of the Rings and comedies in between. What do you like working on a particular genre?
No, I like mixing it up, obviously.
You do? Okay.
I didn't. Okay. I purposefully wanted to just do other things, you know, and it's as great as New Zealand is, it's one of the reasons I sort of wanted to come back to LA, is just to do a lot of different types of things, you know, when out there in Hollywood land, you know. So it was fun, you know, a night at the museum. And
Night at the Museum also that's a family comedy. Yeah, I love that. Now, you know what, I'm going to put my vote out there. Just cast this aspersion out into the universe. When it comes time for Marvel to do Doctor Strange, which they're talking a lot about, right? You know? Okay, yeah, I see Omar off the stage, nodding his head adamantly. I want Mr. Jim Rygiel.
You hear that, Marvel?
Because you can't do like weird, like psychedelic occult magic powers and cool things like that coming out of characters without a brilliant effects guy behind it. Okay,
thank you.
Because seriously, that's going to be quite a trip. You know,
when is that happening?
You know, interdimensional demon threats and magic spells and glowing amulets and all that shit.
Cool.
It's going to be great.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you love to work on something like that?
It would. Yeah.
I love it. Doctor Strange.
Just to be in the Marvel Cinematic Universe kind
of
guarantees employment for a long time.
Yeah. My wife was doing post-viz on Guardians of the Galaxy.
Oh my God.
So she just finished that up. So.
And they're shooting.
So we had a little bit people, a little bit of my group in Marvel.
And they're shooting Avengers 2 and Star Wars next to each other at Leavesden.
Oh, really?
Yeah, isn't that fun?
Wow. And God,
it's a great time to be a geek.
It's a good time to be a geek.
Great time to be a geek.
Yeah.
But officially, seriously, well, I want to know, what do you think about the Ant-Man shakeup? Edgar Wright suddenly leaving the Ant-Man film that Marvel's going to do.
I know of Ant-Man.
Mr. Edgar Wright suddenly left. Saying,
didn't they just hire a new director yesterday?
Yeah, hard creative differences. But this is the guy who did, you know, the Scott Pilgrim versus the World. And now they've brought in a different guy who does comedies, family comedies. And
he did Yes Man.
He did Yes Man. Now he doesn't
I think that's
do.
Good.
It's going to be interesting. Do you have an opinion? No.
No. I mean, you know, it's. You know, the studios are pretty savvy at seeing things in people that we may not see right away. You know, and I think, you know, it was legendary putting their trust in Gareth. You know, and Thomas Tull. You know, the guys.
Who's a great, smart guy,
brilliant guy. I mean, and you know, forget all his investment banking and all the money he made off of that, but he's a great filmmaker.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, you know, a lot of times you work at studios who shall remain nameless, and you have this group of people that sort of have no idea what is going on, you know, but they're trying to put their play in, you know.
Yeah.
And you know, I think that's one of the two reasons that Lord of the Rings is the way it was, because New Line was a small group of people.
Yes.
You know, Bob Shea and you know, I forget the other guy's name.
And who was his lieutenant? Like Gordon Pattison was doing marketing.
Yeah. And
Michael.
Mark Ardesky and that whole group, you know, it was you basically went to one or two people and you talked to them, right?
Yeah.
And it's the same at Legendary. You went to one or two people, and Thomas would come in once in a while and say, great. I really think we need to do this. I think it's an important part. And we'd sit there going, wow, the movie's due in a week. He goes, I know, I think we really have to do it. And he was right, you know. Yes. It's where everybody cheered, you know. So
yes.
So it's
so was there that's sort of studio feedback on Lord of the Rings? A lot of people right now, I mean, there's obvious visual differences between The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings, which we can get into later. But you know, some people feel like, you know, New Line trusted Peter, but you know, was kind of hands-on, and you know, the guys at New Line were in the mix, and you know, they were feeding back.
But Peter had the drive. He was the driver, and you know, the New Line. Mark Ardesky was there basically, so he gave a lot of input as we had Alex Garcia on Godzilla. But generally, they sort of stayed back, you know, and which was really quite refreshing, because normally they're right on your back, and they want to see everything, you know. In fact. Can I swear?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sure.
In fact, when I was starting, Bob Shea, the owner of New Line, was coming up or down or wherever we were to look at some stuff, right? So I got this whole dog and pony ready, right? And it was like 45 minutes of, you know. So Bob Shea comes in and he sits down. And I go, and it was just me and him in the room, right? And I said, well, okay, Bob, well, I'm going to show you some of this stuff and where we're going. He said, here's a cave troll. And when we do the cave troll, you know, we literally build his skeleton and we put muscles on him and then we put skin. So when he moves, he's moving correctly. And as I was explaining this, he goes, I'm not here for fucking school. I go, oh, okay. He wanted to see shots. He wanted to see what the movie's going to look like.
Yeah, what's he paying for?
Yeah. So...
That's so funny.
I don't think I'll work with Bob anymore, so I'll say this. But
that's awesome. No, his reputation precedes him already. That's fine. Yeah,
I love the guy. I mean, he's again another fantastic mind in terms of how all this stuff gets molded. But and then I said, let's go look at some real shots, and it was the can footage you're talking about. And
leading back to that. Yes.
Yeah, and it was cave troll. You know, the cave troll banging around at Gimli in the cave and getting the hobbits and all that stuff.
Before the Balrog.
Before the Balrog, yeah. This is the cave troll. Just
I think just to set it up for audience, the very first preview anyone had ever seen of finished Lord of the Rings was at the Cannes Film Festival, and it was like a 15-20 minute segment.
14 minutes maybe.
That was
we had 80 shots, is what I remember.
Yeah, and it was in Moria. When they're around the tomb, and you know, they have a cave troll.
Yeah,
and so you got to see that whole scene all the way up to, I think it was when the Balrog first roars. It's like a close up.
Okay, yeah.
And they cut to black right after that close up.
All right, I forgot the last part. Yeah.
Yeah. So we hadn't quite got to the Bridge of Khazad-dûm. Yeah, it was like, you know,
you get to see the Balrog.
Yeah, he just did that big roar, and it was like
I remember that now. The big flame wall, and then
he comes burst with that big roar, and then Peter got his first taste of giving us a cliffhanger and making the audience wait and wait and wait, like the end of Smaug. Like the end of Desolation of Smaug, where we're still waiting on that damn cliffhanger.
So that's what the executives wanted to see.
So
anyways, I digress.
They were the shots that were more final than anything, right?
Yes.
And so we had a nice, $3,000 high def monitor at the time, and I'm going to show him on a perfectly calibrated thing. And we go down in this dark room, and he's sitting behind me on the sofa, and I'm running the thing, and I go, this is, where this is the cave troll sequence, and this is sort of where we're going. And I just hear from the back of me, he goes, it's way too fucking dark. I said, well, I was trying to figure out why is it dark. I said, well, it is a cave, it's a little dark, and it wasn't dark. And I said, okay, what's a cave? And he says, no, it's way too fucking dark. We gotta brighten it up. And I said, okay. And I turn around and go, okay. And just as I turn around, I noticed he was wearing his sunglasses. Oh, I said, don't worry, we're going to fix it.
That studio exec.
He was just laying back there. It was like, we'll brighten it up, don't worry.
Wait, so So multiple people are on the visual effects team. Obviously, every fan knows Richard Taylor because he owns Weta and things like that. So you know, and Alex Funky. Like, so you had a whole team, but why were you the one doing the Dog and Pony show? What's the pecking order on the show?
It was all down to the digital group at this point. You know, the stuff was shot is basically, you know, the miniatures are shot. In fact, I don't know if this really had any miniatures. It was all basically real footage, and we were adding the cave troll. So I think they probably went through this with Bob at some point, but this was like a few months later, and we were now just getting ready for Canon what we were going to show, you know.
So the digital effects are kind of the last stop where you actually everyone gets to finally see how this has come together.
Yep, that's the same on any show.
So you know, when we're thinking about how they make films, you know, Peter's on set. Making the creative decisions, guiding the actors, you know, working with the writers and stuff on set, and then and Richard Taylor had built all the costumes, and
makeup
so,
and all that. stuff.
So
his team had designed the weapons.
So everything that's like, almost like life size, full size. That was Richard Taylor, and then after that you've got Alex Funky and the Bigatures.
Shot all the Bigatures.
And
we would need that then, because we would have to take, you know, the Minas Tirith flyover and take that and bring it into our digital world, scan that all in, put our little CG people on it, and get it all tracked in together and finalize the shot basically.
Is that more work or less work than just going all CG?
Well, it's definitely more work, but does it look better? That's always a question, you know.
Yeah.
And then it's also a matter of cost. Building miniatures, you know, back then it wasn't so bad. I mean, Peter had the factory, the miniature factory basically. But now if you go to miniature shops, you know, and you say, I want to build this building and blow it up, it's quite costly. It's a few $100,000 to build this thing, and you get 3 takes, and you better hope they're all good. One of those takes are good.
Yeah.
And generally they are. I mean, it's all very well planned out, but it's you know, it's probably $500,000 just for that 1 or 2 or 3 shots, because you can't really amortize that thing, because once it's blown up, it's blown up.
Done.
Right.
So how much would the equivalent build all digital?
It's probably still as expensive.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, it's probably still very expensive, but I can blow it up 50 times if I want, and I can use it over and over again.
That's what it is.
And you know,
bingo.
And we did, you know, I don't want to give away too many secrets of Godzilla, but you know, we built buildings purposefully to fall apart, and they would change them a bit to make them look a little different.
Yeah.
But you can't build, you know, an entire San Francisco that falls apart. You know, so you'd have to get sort of clever as to, you know, this one's he's going to hit and knock down, this one he's just going to knock the corner off, and these he's going to do nothing to you. So you build those buildings accordingly.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
So many huge science fiction films, Star Trek, Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, Godzilla. We're all seeing San Francisco getting destroyed these days.
Exactly.
Everyone's got it out
Golden
for
Gate
San
Bridge.
Francisco. Yeah, I love it.
Right.
It happens every time. But I really like that you guys had given San Francisco a very surreal and very different look. It didn't look like apes.
Right.
When we saw it, you know, devastated by their and it didn't look like you know, Attack of the 50-Foot Woman either.
Right.
But I'm telling you what, what I was going to ask was about.
While you're thinking about
I'm thinking of that question. We're going to go to the chat room.
Questions in the chat room.
Okay.
You can text us questions.
Oh, I've already got one
on the hotline 530-64-FRODO.
Oh, nice.
64-FRODO.
All right.
That's right.
530-64-FRODO. Text us some questions. Chat room. Her name is Gothy.
Oh, okay.
She wants to know: did you work on Grand?
Grand. No, I didn't. Well, I worked on it in the digital side of things.
Wasn't it all digital?
Well, there were flames and effects.
No,
added to it.
there was a set piece that they built.
Yes.
Really? There was a.
Yeah, there was.
Real.
Yeah, because
I wrote about it in my travel journey. Yeah.
Yeah,
I saw the whole thing. It was really there. Yeah.
And I'm trying to think. I don't think we built a minute. I think there was just one big piece for when they were sort of on the guys pushing it to the
to the
gate.
And then there's a couple
and it was hitting the gate.
Yeah.
So it wasn't. I don't think it was the full piece, but it was like half the piece or something. But I think it was.
And there was digital flame.
And then everything else was
digital.
digital.
And a couple characters.
Yeah, yeah. And then we did have digital Gronds too. So yes, I did work on Grond. I worked on everything. So
I worked on everything
before all the questions started. And it's like, yeah.
The flaming eye. Like how hard? How much?
Sauron.
Yeah. How hard was that coming up with like?
Really hard. Really hard. I mean, we just kept working and reworking and designing and redesigning, and first you got to come up with the design, and then you got to come up with how that thing is. How do you want that thing to move? Yeah. So there was a neat guy down there. I think he's still down there, Gray Horsfeld, who did a lot of our landscape set extensions, and he was sort of helping work on the. And he did the Balrog flames and all this stuff. So he's sort of a dynamic, all-around smart guy, So he was working on how these flames look out and whatever.
So you had great flames from the first movie, like it was.
Well, okay. So I got a Balrog story. Okay, we're talking about flames.
Good.
So
I love it.
When we were. I'm not going to name any names because they all had great intentions. So
there were 1,800 people that worked on the film. We're not going to name any names.
Yeah,
there were a lot of people.
There was a lot. Well, actually, I found out for the entire trilogy, from beginning to end, there was 23,000 people.
Really?
Yeah, like including like the guy that was doing the chain links and the guy that made the rings. 23,000 people worked on it to some degree. They were about 23,000 paychecks to different people.
How many reported to you?
No, I had probably at one time. I had on the last one I had like 400 or 500 digital people, and I was also doing second unit for the big Mama Kill battle.
Yeah.
So I had a couple hundred orcs there. So it's probably up near 800 or 1,000 people. Indirectly.
Yeah.
There was Alex Funky and his group and this thing. But
wow.
Balrog.
So when we were working on the Balrog, they were working on. They spent quite a bit of money. I won't say how much. I'll keep that secret. Into developing real looking fire, right? And so. You'd see, I saw some of the early tests, and there'd be this little box basically, and you'd see this little like piece of coal, and all of a sudden you'd see the thing sort of like flint up and start a fire basically, right? And the fire is going. It's like, wow, that is unbelievably great. That looks like absolute real fire. It's like we are home. I don't have to think about this anymore, right? And it took a while to compute, so they got these specialty computers and all that. I said, okay, now we have to see it on the Balrog, so let's light up the Balrog. And he goes, okay, it's going to take me a couple of weeks, and this is the deadline was getting closer. It was like, I don't know, we were maybe 3 months out or something. So they put the shot was, there's one shot where the Balrog's, can I move out of the mic a little bit?
Yes.
The Balrog's sort of standing up, and then he sort of like steps forward a bit, right?
Yeah.
And so we said, let's use that shot as a test case. So there's the Balrog, and he's sitting there, and he's flaming, and he looks fantastic. And he takes a step forward, and all the flames blow out.
They
all blew out. They all went out. Or half of them went out.
The simulation was so good with the movement of air and everything.
Well, that's what I said. I said, well, wait a minute, the fire blew out. He goes, yeah, it's real fire. It was literally based on like simulated oxygen versus
Wow.
And so
if the Balrog in real life moved that fast, some of his flames would go out.
He would blow out probably.
According to the physics of Tolkien's world, however.
So that ruins the whole opening to Two Towers when they're falling.
And this also changes the conversation that you guys have to create different laws of physics in your own course of filmmaking without regard to real gravity or real physics.
You don't want the Balrog to blow out.
No, you want the shot. You got to have the shot. Okay, I get this. Okay.
And you got to.
That's fascinating.
It might in a real world be on fire too, because you got to figure out what the Balrog's made out of too. So that's all part of the real fire simulation. I don't know what he was taking, but basically what was happening is the time was getting too short, right? And because each of these tests took like a couple weeks to render and all that sort of stuff.
Oh my gosh, 2 weeks to render a shot?
It was, that's Godzilla was probably all our shots were at least 2 weeks.
Wow.
For each time we rendered, and we probably rendered each shot hundreds of times.
Holy Toledo!
I mean, because of all that simulation, all that real simulated smoke.
So that's after everyone's done all the work and all hundreds of CG artists.
Yeah,
and then you just
literally hundreds.
Render, and you
it
pray that it doesn't
cooks
crash.
in the cooker. Yeah, pray that it doesn't crash.
It cooks in the cooker.
But so anyway, going back to Balrog, so we did this thing, and that's where Gray Horsfeld came up with this great idea. So I went into my backyard, and I literally at night just pointed my camera at a little sterno can, or I forgot what it was, charcoal briquette, and it was just one little flame against black, right? And I shot it for like a minute or two, and then I took all that footage and gave it to Gray, and he could pick like time sequences so the flame will always look different. But anyway, the way the Balrog was made was 50,000 of those glued on, so there are 50,000 sprites, individual flame sprites. So you get the little detail of each individual flame, but they would also, turn into this giant Balrog, basically, And then when he moved, they would have to simulate it so this stuff would stretch correctly as he sort of animated, but you could keep it always lit, which was good.
Well, yeah,
and he really just pulled that through in the last minute, and it looked great. It was beautiful.
The sterno that lit the Balrog.
Sterno, and was also used on the
I love it. I love that.
Torches at Helm's Deep.
Yeah, the torches at Helm's Deep.
Those are all digital flames on there when they're running.
Okay, I had
that don't get put out in the rain.
Right, exactly. Right, there you go.
I had a brief conversation with fans last week. We did a very abbreviated show that only lasted for 16 minutes, by the way, because we had technical problems.
Right.
I had introduced the idea of Maleficent being at #1 at the box office, having some really interesting visual motifs that seem quite directly inspired by some shots that we know. So I wanted to.
Have you seen Maleficent?
I have
you
not.
seen it? Okay.
I have not. Yeah.
Okay. There's a part where Maleficent sends a warning in her anger as a green twirling spire of smoke magic that looks like a green twirling spire of smoke magic from Minas Morgul. And cut to
up into the clouds.
Straight up into the clouds, and then cut to next shot of someone on the castle wall a couple hundred miles away going gasp in a reaction shot, just like Gandalf's reaction shot. So, and I'm like, this happens. There are repeat motifs in fantasy storytelling. Tolkien himself borrowed heavily from the Icelandic Eddas, and all the dwarves' names were borrowed from great Icelandic poems and Viking poems. So there's a little bit of lifting and borrowing and all kinds of fantasy storytelling. How do you take that when you find that 12 years later there's sometimes a little bit of motifs that you've done that are classic, now considered really visual, strong pieces, and other people are using them?
I mean, it's an honor. I don't know. I don't even know if they really sort of think of that. It's probably in their subconscious somewhere. I mean, I'm sure they're not sitting around a table going, "We got to copy that green smoke from Lord of the Rings." You know what I mean? It's like, here's some cool concepts, and it sort of goes down a path, and it's like, oh, that looks pretty cool.
Well, it's kind of, you were saying, Gareth was watching the making of Lord of the Rings while doing
all
Godzilla.
It's
how cool is that?
It just kind of feeds into that.
Exactly. And, I used, we had a joke at Weta, I was called the haze master because I'd always keep saying add haze to it, add atmosphere, add haze, because I sort of hate it when the CG creatures come out and they're just like, they're ugly and dirty, but they're clean. So
you
in
can see every little
pore and everything. So in Godzilla, to be precise, is we actually had like smoke always emitting, even though the smoke comes from nowhere. We emitted smoke, and we just layered in very subtly, so it always looked like they were sort of vortexing smoke around them as they moved, and I think it sort of makes them live in the world a bit more, rather than here's the real life guys walking through smoke and vortexing smoke, but then when you get to Godzilla, he's just this big clean thing moving around,
Well, even like the biggest, most amazing set piece in Godzilla that everyone is still buzzing about is the whole skydiving scene. It's just like layer after layer of clouds and smoke and clouds and smoke, and then a little bit of Godzilla, and then smoke, and then a foot, and then smoke.
It's so good.
Well, it's interesting because we were talking about the filmmaking process, and actually the first thing that you do, and Gareth again is the master of this, is we do this thing called pre-visualization.
Ah, yes.
Where literally you do the whole movie before you shoot it, and it looks very PlayStation-y. And we used a company, Third Floor, who did a fantastic job on. They're like, you know, one of the big guys, them and Proof and Halon. But
and they can create the whole movie.
They created the whole movie, and yeah, exactly. We took about 2 or 3 months before we even shot. And Gareth, a lot of times you'll do previs, and the director will just say, "Ah, it's good reference. I'll probably never use it." You know, it's sort of like Gareth was like there till 1 in the morning, getting every frame right.
Wow.
Of that previs. He was hands-on every day, you know.
Wow.
And
that's great.
And I'm thinking, okay, I hope he doesn't just like throw it away. And then when we got on the set, he's like, this is what I want. You know, even though even though you get there and the dynamics say you can't get there.
Yeah.
He would have his iPad and it's like, this is the shot I want because this is what I did in the previs. So we'd be looking at the previs and the cameraman would have to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you know, just to get the exact timing right of this little dolly move or whatever he was doing. So, so anyway, that was another thing. The Halo jump, he gave that. We actually had real guys jumping out of a plane. Oh. Yeah, we didn't do CG. There was a couple of CG guys, but so he gave that previs to the jump master and said, this is what I want you to get. And so the jump masters just went up there and jumped out of a plane, I don't know, 20 times, and got each shot exactly the way he wanted it. And that's why.
Wow.
And if you looked at the previs, I just looked at it the other day, and what's in the movie, you could almost wipe between the two. It's pretty cool.
That is cool.
But they were shooting it in Paris, so it was like blue skies, you know, Paris, California. So it was blue skies. It looked nothing like we wanted to. So then MPC added all the layers. They don't jump with big red flares when you're going to see Godzilla. But it was even in previs form, it was such a beautiful visual with this sort of, you know, thunderstorm world. Hell basically they're diving into, with these beautiful red streamers, you know, and it was it just becomes an artistic thing at some point, you know.
Very
and
cool.
it's like, that's what
people were talking about the movie. Like,
he's really good at that.
So everyone wants to know, there's been huge debate. Did Andy Serkis do mocap for this? Because he's got a credit for creature performance.
That's right.
Yeah, you know, since Andy and I are friends, I called him because, and it was sort of like Gollum, where Gollum was a creature, but you still had to feel a little bit of soul in them. You know, the Mutos were just these like crazy rampant monsters, you know, or the cave trolls, you know. But there's those moments, particularly in Godzilla, where you want to see, you know, a little, you know, sadness for them and
twinkle.
A little twinkle, right? And so Andy helped us by, you know, again, we showed him the previs, and he basically acted out what he thought Godzilla should be doing at the time. So, you know, he gave us, like, one of the parts in particular is when, you know, Godzilla falls and Ford's right in front of him, and you just sort of dig on Godzilla's face, and he's like,
Yes.
A lot of that came from Andy, you know. So he would do that, and then we passed. They're just videos, basically, and then we passed that on to the animators at MPC and the animation supervisor, and said, "This is the feeling we want." You know what I mean? We weren't rotomation like we were talking about before, which we did with Gollum, where we wanted everything exactly moving the way Andy was. But this was more of a feeling of the sentiment you wanted as Godzilla was falling, you know.
Exactly.
So we give credit to that.
It worked. And that shot, you can, and in the foreground, our hero is in. I loved all these foreground shots because they reminded me of the Toho original films with all these people at this little scale in the foreground and something is rampaging in the background. I loved it.
That's Gareth.
Loved that he did that. But that shot where I realized we're suddenly anthropomorphizing Godzilla. Suddenly there was a gleam of real pain.
Right.
You felt his pain. Right. And our hero was in the foreground, just that big against him. And the two of them seemed to have a moment of understanding each other.
Exactly.
Brilliant.
That's exactly what we're going for.
It played very well.
Yeah. And the other one was when Godzilla's getting out of the water, when he's sort of done with the Muto, and he's sort of slowly crawling up, and you see him. You can you're in the back of, you know, looking at the back of him, but you can still feel his his pain basically, and then he just goes, you know, that was Andy too. So, or you know, bits of
some people thought, you know, in the pre-release movies that, you know, Gareth was all about, you know, loves the man in suit. You know, they wanted to bring back the man in suit feeling. So the thought was, wow, well, mocap is a digital man in suit.
Yeah.
But this was, but we did. He didn't end up doing a man in suit at all. It was all hand animated.
Right, because all hand animated by MPC, the guys at MPC. Particularly, you know, when you're trying to do a 350, 400-foot monster, it's hard to get a human to sort of, you know, give you that same sort of bulk. Even though you know, I've heard many mocap things. Well, we can scale up his motion and all that sort of stuff. It's just, you know, the guy, you know, Godzilla has these little arms, and it's just different, you know. So while you want to get some of the emotions coming out through Andy, the actual movements themselves, I think, needed to be hand animated. And we did the same on Lord of the Rings, where the cave trolls were all hand animated. We didn't capture those. Those were all hand animated because they're bigger, and you know, and you want to do things that a human couldn't or normally wouldn't do, you know.
Yeah.
Where Gollum, I wanted him very much to be like a human.
As human
as possible. You know, so when he's sort of skittering around, I mean, that is Andy. You know, he was in the shot doing that. In fact, I just gave a talk in Toronto last week, and I was showing some of those pieces. And I'm watching Gollum sort of jumping around the ground. I remember Andy doing the same thing. I mean, he was there, and we painted him out and replaced him with Gollum, and we roto-mated to Andy's movements, you know, and his facial features. So, now I know there's a big controversy about that right now.
Yeah.
So, but
I feel like the visual effects award system should start looking at like splitting, you know, into, because now there's, you know, there's like musical score and musical song, you know, there's
my wife is on a branch or a thing in the academy called Cinema 2.0.
Yeah.
And it's what's the next step, you know. So you know, some of the DPs got Academy Awards for movies that were 90 or 80% CG.
Life of Pi. Something.
A what? I don't even know what you're talking about. Avatar.
Look it up on Google, YouTube.
Yeah. No, I mean Avatar. You know, I'll just say it. It's like, it's, you know.
Well, it's an animated film.
80% of that is all animation. You know, and the DPs were not sitting there till 2 in the morning animating every one or lighting every one of those things. You know, those are the people at Weta or MPC or whatever.
Yeah.
So that, I think we're all getting to agreement, well, we being the digital people, that has to be recognized, you know, for, you know, maybe it's another award tacked on the traditional cinematography where it's digital cinematography. So there's two people that go up and get the award, you know.
That's great to have that distinction. Yeah.
Yeah, and you know, and then you got to look at every other branch. Makeup. You know, we're doing Gollum was all, you know, digital, right?
Those are all Photoshop makeup artists that are very good in their field.
Well, in fact, there's precedence. You know, I always keep bringing up as the Elephant Man, right? John Hurd was nominated for an Academy Award. You never saw him. He either had the burlap bag on his face through most of the film, and then for the rest of the film, all you saw was his eye, and he had that big rubber mask on.
Yes,
so
absolutely.
So if that can get nominated, why can't animators putting digital makeup and rotomating or copying the actor exactly? Why can't that be? Why couldn't the actor be nominated? Why couldn't that be you know, nominated for makeup and hair? Now hair is getting all, you know, Brave or whatever the thing was, you know.
Yeah, indeed.
It's becoming very gray right now, and
because every movie is CG now.
I agree.
It
is time. Drama. It's time to have this conversation.
Yeah.
And the governor, the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences, has a board of governors. In case our audience doesn't know what goes on in this Tinseltown, and those folks have to sit down and they have to rewrite their charter.
Right.
This is what happened when there was a great big outcry against Walt Disney Animation when Beauty and the Beast found itself in one of the coveted top 5 slots for Best Picture. Oh no, you can't have a film as Best Picture if it's not live action.
Right.
So yeah, it's really
Tintin. why can't Tintin be best animated feature?
Right.
Thank you.
Because it was mocapped. So what does that mean?
Right.
So all these weird little gray areas, big discussion, and it is all going on, but it's it's sort of slugging through the system.
The system worked on the mess with
people are starting to become aware of it though, which is good.
We really do need at least to talk about in the immediate, in our lifetimes, we have to have a motion performance Academy Award of some kind. And of course the idea of having, every few years they manage to change sound editing and sound design, or they'll split something else off. They did split Best Picture to Best Animated Feature. We get that different category now. At least.
Well, there was the big thing with Trent Reznor, where he was looping music for, I think it was the Facebook movie, Social Network.
Yeah, the Social Network.
And should that be allowed in?
Yeah.
It's like, well, it was the music in the movie. You know what I mean?
But he didn't go in front of an
orchestra. Yeah, that's what it was.
It was like he used a Moog synthesizer to.
True that.
That's a musical instrument, right?
Yeah.
And the guy who wrote the score for The Truman Show borrowed most of his music from Koyaanisqatsi, which is a famous Philip Glass. The really famous Philip Glass. And why did he get an Oscar nomination for that? It wasn't even his music. Anyway, it happens.
So
it's weird. It's a weird town.
Speaking of Oscars.
Yeah, speaking of Oscars.
You won 3 for Lord of the Rings. Hobbit has won none.
Ouch.
What the hell?
So why is there a big difference? Can you because you're on the front line of visual effects, you can maybe speak to why does The Hobbit look and feel different and it's not being recognized?
Well, the conventional wisdom among fans is that been there, done that, and the newness and the novelty of the Lord of the Rings is what initially wowed everyone.
I mean, just personally, just from my standpoint, the thing that sort of bugs me is, again, it's getting back to that grittiness that I'm talking about, the smoke and atmosphere. The Hobbit seemed a little cleaner on everything. Like I remember when you first went into the Hobbit's house and they all had those perfectly pressed little mustaches and things. It just something
freshly
bugged me.
Waxed.
And when you went and saw Gimli, like in the Fellowship, he has like beads in his beard, but he's sort of like this gritty old guy with like dirt on him. You know what I mean? It's just
lit dark.
It was just. Everything, and I don't know if that's the 48 frames a second. I don't know what sort of makes it feel like that. Or when you look at some of the CG scenes, everything seemed a little clean to me,
Yeah.
And
that's what a lot of people say about, like a lot of the characters in The Hobbit, like the 2 main bad guys are all CG.
Yeah.
Whereas in Lord of the Rings, Lurtz was man on set, guy in suit. You know.
There's the whole, talking about Cinema 2.0 and this in particular, there's the one question I've been asked for 30 years is, are we ever going to replace digital actors or real actors with digital actors? And I said, I could stick a skin on them, but I can't make Tom Hanks Tom Hanks. Only Tom Hanks can make Tom Hanks, right?
Yeah.
So I could look at Tom Hanks films and maybe try and have him say some goofy things, but the way he can only do it, but it's what's turning in his mind. I mean, when they're acting on set, they're not just reading a script, they're making a lot of those movements creative decisions right there, and that's where the acting comes out.
So even though it's a masterpiece of technical progress or achievement, when that 3D hologram of Tupac shows up on stage, are you admittedly also a little bit creeped out by that, like I am?
I'm not creeped out by it. I think it's fascinating.
It is fascinating.
I love the technology.
Yeah.
And there is an example where they did a couple minutes of CG Tupac, right? And so but they probably watched many Tupac videos and
same with Michael Jackson at the Grammy Awards.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, ooh.
Yeah, I missed that one. I didn't see that one, but
not quite Uncanny Valley.
It's
like it looks real.
So for the rest of our lives, if we say we got digital acting down with Tupac and Michael Jackson, do we want to see them for the rest of our lives? Or do we want other actors or other musicians to come out and wow us?
Exactly.
And to me, that's what the acting or the musician sort of brings forth to the whole thing, is their prowess, you know, and their abilities and their soul, basically, you know.
So on The Hobbit, right, infamously now, they filmed one of the bad guys, Balrog, was filmed on set, man in suit, Lawrence Macaore. Macaore. And a creative decision was made in post, saying, you know what, he's not really, I don't like what it's good. So they replaced him completely with a brand new CG character that looks nothing like the man in suit that they had on set, which was very Lurtz-like, very blood dripping, and it was very imposing. Was there any characters on Lord of the Rings that you shot on set, had a full makeup treatment, and then in post was kind of like, you know, that's not working, let's go all digital?
Yes. Treebeard.
Ah, yes,
really?
Of course.
All digital?
Well,
yes.
Yeah, Treebeard was, and again, we're working with the technology at our hands at the time, you know. So Treebeard originally was a big animatronic, and it's hilarious. So when you see the shot of him holding the hobbits and he's sort of walking down the thing, you know, Weta Workshop did a fantastic job. I'll just say that now, building it. But as all animatronics do, and I get this question all the time, should we do animatronic? And I said, go ahead, but we're just going to replace it. Is you know, so all we really kept from this, and there was a full Treebeard with, you know, animatronic mouth and little eyes that could look around. But
Daniel showed me that thing.
Jim Henson, but it sort of looked like a cuckoo clock, you know.
It kind of did, yeah.
And so we kept some of the bows where the hobbits were sitting in, but everything else was replaced because, you know, we could just get so much more acting out of it that you can't do with servo motors with 3 guys sort of, you know, trying to make them look correct. So you can really, again, sort of give him more fluid motion and, you know, looks to him. And
that's why Jabba the Hutt will always be that Jabba the Hutt versus the one we saw in episode 1.
Right.
Always that Jabba the Hutt.
Yeah, it's not an actor, but it's a character.
It's kind of, I loved that Treebeard thing. Yeah. I mean, it was Daniel Falconer, our friend. Daniel Falconer took me on a little tour when I was sneaking around for TheOneRing.net back like 13 years ago. And Daniel said, look, we put a lovely little snail right in there at the beard. Like, he found this place. Because he had drawn all these, designed all these ents. And he showed me like a quick beam, which is my nickname online is Quick Beam. So he showed me designs for other ents that were pulled from the movie and never made it in to the Lord of the Rings.
Right. Because there was the little group of like 10 or 20, right? But there's a whole other...
And there was one other named ent that was in the book. And he had designed one.
Oh, cool.
But it never got into the film. Because Daniel's a cool guy. So do you ever get to see any of your old friends? I mean, working on Godzilla, did you get to sit down with Sir Richard Taylor and hang out with anybody?
No. That was all sort of happened before I actually got onto the film. So he was working with Gareth on a lot of that. So.
Cool.
Yeah, so in the credits of the Godzilla, there's Richard Taylor, Greg Broadmoor, Philip, I think.
Greg Broadmoor is so cool. He's just so cool.
Can you talk about the biggest controversy with Godzilla is like half the old fans calling him Fatzilla, and rumor has it that
I heard it's just the Japanese fans.
Yeah, especially Japanese. But I heard that one of the working titles was Fat Man, or a lot of not previs, but early production work had
then there was that I've seen. There was a name branded on a lot of those early sketches that said Fat Man, but that wasn't a code for the film or anything.
Was it?
Yeah. Want to pull it up?
Yeah, show me.
Yeah, I'll show you.
Was it from Weta?
Yeah.
Okay, because I probably didn't see a lot of those.
Yeah,
so that was again very, very early.
Oh, okay. You probably didn't see these.
So were you? So Weta was working directly with the director, kind of coming up with.
And this was probably. I think
they were still pitching it.
I think 6 months before he even got Gareth was even signed on to the show.
So who recommended you for the movie? Was it like was it the studio saying, "Hey, look after this kid. We need your expertise and his."
There's a bit of that, and and you know, like I said before, Gareth was watching the. The making of Lord of the Rings, so I might have been burned into his brain. You know?
Well, if we just get this
hey, Jim. I don't know why I just said that.
Did that? How did you get Lord of the Rings? Was it kind of the same thing? Like, hey, can you help this kind of new director?
No, it wasn't like that. I went there begging on my knees. No, that was through. you know, you get to know all the VFX people, all the different studios, and that was Lauren Ritchie, who was the sort of the head of VFX at New Line, and she said, hey, do you want to go? You know, a lot of people didn't want to move to New Zealand, basically, and they said, hey, do you want to move to New Zealand? And I said, yeah. You know, I mean, you know, in the worst case, you know, because they didn't know how it was going to do, right? Yeah. If it flopped, you know.
There's a lot of these early pieces, but this is before you started working on it?
Yeah, that's... Okay.
Yeah, they were betting the house on it. Like, you know, if this is gonna be our last movie, let's instead of 150 million for 5 pictures, let's just.
I remember just, you know, I was watching the timer count down to when it was first released and looking online to see the feedback, right? Mm-hmm. Because you don't know how it's going to go. You think you have a great film, but you know, at the time there weren't a lot of like weird fantasy films out. You know, that was a big stretch. Yeah. And so
and Star Wars was the big fantasy one, and it kind of led everybody down.
Yeah, but this is a different sort. This wasn't, you know, space. This was, you know, the Middle Earth sort of fantasy, you know.
Sword and sorcery.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, well, that's just for geeks, right? But obviously it wasn't, because it did well. And I just remember seeing it and then started reading the thing. And I'm like, oh, thank God, you know, we did it right, because you don't know. Literally up to the minute it's released, you know, you get lots of nice, oh, it looks great, you know, but I've worked on films where it's, oh, it looks great, and then it flops, you know.
Mm-hmm. So how does someone get to work on either Lord of the Rings or Godzilla? What's kind of your hiring practices? How did you find people, source people? Did people like apply online or send you their reels? Like what's?
Well, I don't have to do much.
Well, you don't, but you hire.
Yeah,
you do the hiring.
So I look at the facilities now.
Okay.
And you know, we went and met with MPC. You know, MPC had a couple things going for him. They helped Gareth gratis with the Comic-Con piece.
Wow.
You know, so that's quite a bit. So we took a heavy look at them. Plus, they had some really great character work. You know, so I was looking at Wrath of the Titans. You know, they had some big, great creatures in there. You know,
another Balrog inspired.
Yeah.
Very much so.
And it's like, you know, they could do it. You know,
worth mentioning. Yeah. Let's watch Snow White and the Huntsman. I can't tell you how many Miyazaki films they borrowed visually from.
Sure.
It's true. But I mean, Tarsem is one of those visual directors who constantly surprises with his originality.
Right.
And I wasn't a big fan of Mirror Mirror, but I'm telling you, I love The Fall, and I love The Cell, and you know, we have a big fandom that follows Lee Pace.
Right.
Of course, Lee Pace is our king of the elves in Thranduil, and we see Lee Pace in all of these Tarsem movies.
Oh.
And would you like to work with someone like Tarsem? Such a visual mastermind.
Sure,
Is there anybody that is kind of? Yeah. Obviously, you worked with Gareth, is like when nobody knew about. Is there any directors that you see up and coming?
Yeah, on your list that you'd like to work with.
Up and coming.
Yeah. Who's the guy who directed Looper? Bam! Quick, come on, guys! Online, trivia. Yes, the guy. He also directed. That small little detective noir film, also with Joseph Gordon-Levitt. Brick. He directed Brick. He directed Looper. Which, I mean, I like his stuff.
I don't know. Yeah, sure.
And I know his name. It'll come back to me in a minute. The live chat friends will tell us in just a second.
I don't necessarily hunt down directors. I hunt down projects.
Okay.
You know, so projects that get me excited, you know, is where I want to be, rather than because directors, like you're saying, have such great surprises in them. You know, it's like, you know, who was the guy we were talking about, Ant-Man, right?
Yes, it was Edgar Wright, who just left Ant-Man.
So, you know, why did they get this other director, right? It's like, well, he might do a great job.
Yeah, we still don't know.
You know?
They probably do.
I sort of like that, because that's what makes filmmaking fun, actually, too. Because if you sort of get into the formula, it's like, okay, I'm going to make a giant creature, and I know exactly how he's going to swing, you know. But when you with each new set of minds, basically, you come up with new and interesting things, which is what I really enjoy. Yeah.
Rian Johnson.
That's right, Rian Johnson.
So on Lord of the Rings, you chased it. Does that mean you read the book? You had read the books going in, or were you new? Like
Lord of the Rings. Lord of the Rings, I did chase. That happened through New Line, basically.
New Line.
Yeah.
Called up and said, "We need you."
Yeah, exactly. I mean, but once you you know, I had to go meet Peter and go through an interview process and all that, and they didn't have Skype at the time, so I had to fly to New Zealand, you know. So I think once I saw everything, I was like, please hire me. You know what I mean? So you sort of...
You had seen The Frighteners by then.
Yeah.
Okay. Ironically, The Frighteners stars Sean Astin's dad, John.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, John Astin was in The Frighteners. So Peter Jackson had a connection to the Astin family before getting Sean to be Samwise.
Yeah.
But you got to see The Frighteners, and you got to see Heavenly Creatures. And
Heavenly
you thought,
Creatures was my soul.
And you thought Peter Jackson's really capable of doing this.
Yeah, well, you know, in hindsight, it's like, duh.
Sure.
But no, I just really enjoyed it. And you saw all that character development, and that's what, you know.
Was all the people that were doing the visual effects, were they Lord of the Rings fans? Was that kind of a prerequisite to get on that show, or was it?
Not really. I think there was a couple of them, but because nothing ever was really done to that degree. I mean, we all read the books, you know, but
nobody, it wasn't like 500 artists that had lived and breathed Lord of the Rings all their life.
No. I mean, that's happened in the later shows, Two Towers, and
really,
you know, as each one got successful, you had people begging at your door, you know, and writing from around the world. So because we had a website for hiring, and I think the first time we'd get like 2 people a day started putting their things in, and then by the third one,
they were so easy to get a job on.
They were hundreds. I mean, just hundreds a day, you know, and you had to go through and sort through it all.
Wow.
But you know,
that's a lot.
Yeah.
How do you choose? What makes certain people stand out if you're getting hundreds of resumes to work on? Obviously, a high-profile film that's obviously going to be successful. Obviously, everybody wants to work on it.
It wasn't obvious at the time.
Really?
Are you talking about Godzilla or
Lord of the Rings?
Lord of the Rings. Yeah, I mean, it wasn't obvious. It was you know, this fantasy film. Like I was saying, it's like you know, in fact, when we were talking about Cannes, and there was 80 shots we had to do for the Cannes Film Festival, I literally thought, as they were showing the stuff at Cannes, I thought my whole crew was going to mutiny and leave, because we did this great, you know, cave troll sequence, right? And we knew we had some stuff to work on, but it was pretty cool, you know, at the time.
It felt so real.
It was so real, and it was so good, you know. And the problem was, you know, as in the old way of working, is the artists would work. We'd have film, and we'd have color matches, and you know, the compositors took pride in matching, you know, the cave troll to the real set stuff, and it was all color balanced, and they killed themselves to get that color balance. Well, this is at the time that digital intermediate technology was coming out.
Yeah.
The Oh Brother, and we were the second one to do all 3 films with digital intermediates, basically, and which means the colorists go in and just fuck with the film.
Yeah.
Just fuck with the colors.
Yeah, all the
you
colors.
Know?
Yeah.
And so that whole cave troll sequence, you know, they had all these beautiful lighting and coloring on it, and the DI was just sort of like crushed in blue and gray, and you know, sort of what they do in the DI session.
Yeah.
And the artists literally would come up and go, "What the hell is going on here?"
It worked so hard.
Yeah, no,
to make
literally.
That cave troll green.
No, I thought they were going to hit me. I mean, seriously. And then I sort of just closed my door for 2 days, you know, because I'm like, oh God, I got to show it at Cannes, you know. and then the first reviews started coming out. It's like, oh my God, you know. And then I knew it's like I could take a deep breath now, because it's like, what did they love it, you know.
Really loved it.
So it was very intentional, like the different lands, worlds in the Lord of the Rings each have a different color.
Yeah,
scheme.
Oh, very planned.
You know, when the Balrog is there, everything is flame and
golden
red.
with the elves.
And then when you go to Galadriel's thing, it's very purple.
Yep. In fact, it was interesting because they can do this thing, you know, where you have a monitor, you know, your big LED or whatever we had at the time monitor, and you see the entire film on like little postage stamp size.
Yeah.
So you know, like those posters that sort of make up faces, right?
Yeah.
So it's little clips through the entire movie, right?
Yeah.
And it's interesting to look at those, because you see the whole color wave go through. So you can see it's like, oh, it's going golden, and then it goes to red, and then it starts on here and goes blue, and you can see sort of the tonality of how it changes. It's sort of interesting just to see like that.
That's cool.
Not that it's planned that way, but you know,
I just went to a talk with the directors of Frozen and that whole movie is blue. The entire color board, like every single shot is a blue hue. They used every blue in the known color sphere to create that. The sunset is blue. It's like a purplish blue. Like, so
it's true and very strange.
But we're missing that color, kind of color scheming in The Hobbit. Like you said, I think it's a little too crisp and too clear.
It didn't seem to have as much of that DI treatment where it's sort of, we're in Frodo's house, and then it has a golden feel to it,
Even when we went to Mirkwood, allow me to interject. I was looking for that type of DI work when we went through Mirkwood.
And it's not murky at all. There's no smoke. There's no mist. There's nothing murky.
I'm telling this to the king. Is it the King of Haze? Is that the nickname?
Haze it up.
Haze it up.
Haze it up.
Guys.
That's what The Hobbit needs.
Well, and I was just walking up in the Santa Monica Mountains, and you look at the mountain across, and it's hazed up.
It is.
It's atmospheric perspective, so you need that to sort of, even though, wow, it's a clear day, you would never have it. It doesn't matter because how many times have you looked at some beautiful sunset and said that looks fake, right? We don't want it to look fake, so I would probably mess with that beautiful sunset to make it seem more
hyper-real,
gritty. Yeah, exactly.
It's funny. I go out to the desert. We go way, way, way out to the desert to hidden hot springs in the Santa Ynez River Valley, which is beyond those big, big mountains of Santa Barbara.
Right.
We get down to the river valley. No light pollution. Nobody anywhere around. And when you get under that dome of stars, it looks oftentimes suddenly fake. Am I in a little planetarium dome that seems to be only about 60 yards bigger than around us right now?
You see every star in the universe.
Yes.
Right? Yeah, it's like,
you see every star in the universe, and it looks like a strange fake special effect of some kind.
And you would never do that. You put that in the movie, it's like, what?
Exactly.
It's bad.
That's so funny, though.
Was there any shots that you had that you got pushed back? Like, more haze, and someone's like, I spent so much time creating this. Like, you want to cover it up?
Yes. Well, in Lord of the Rings in particular. There was the shot where the armies attacking at Minas Tirith. They're attacking the Mumakils, basically. They're riding down, and there's the big helicopter shot with. No, I'm sorry, I'm getting mixed up. Is it that one? Anyway, it was Minas Tirith. Tens of thousands of horsemen riding, and we're sort of following along with them.
Oh, they're coming in from the
and they're coming off
east
down from the hill and attacking.
The Rohirrim.
And so that was one of those shots that took I think 2 weeks per frame to render, because those are all digital horses, all digital. CGI guys, all mocap, and tens of thousands of them all doing different things, and we put them in there, and it's like, well, that doesn't look real, it just because it looks like a PlayStation at the time, and so we'd start layering, hoofs. When they kick up dust, they're going to kick up dust, and it gets more dusty towards the end. So by the end, you can't even see half the guys, and so we kept layering more dust, just to sort of sit it all in, and so like. That's where I think got the Haze King. More haze. The
Haze King.
So it sounds like a lot of movies where the CG is like obvious CG, and is because it's the creature, the animators and the designers. They're so proud of their work. They don't want to cover. They're not thinking about the big picture. They're thinking about what they did in that shot, rather than, all right, what's the atmosphere for this?
What is the real photography looked at? Seamus McGarvey was fantastic, one of the best cinematographers of our time, and so he was great to work with, and I just took a lot of cues off of what he delivered. It's like, well, this is the way he lit it, this is the way he smoked it up, and what we did, and so we just sort of mimicked that as much as we could.
Was there a lot? It seems like Lord of the Rings did not have a lot of stage, green screen or stage work. It was a lot of outdoor practical. I mean, they built the big sets. They built outside in quarries and stuff like that.
Yeah, and we had we had a big green screen for the end battle with the Mumakils, the big elephants and the horses and all that. That was I don't know, 400 or 500 feet.
And the forest, I guess, the Fangor.
Fangorn Forest had a nice practical set.
That was a big miniature.
Yeah, a big miniature, and there's
trees,
and it sloped up, and they had a battered down wall of Isengard to represent post Treebeard attack.
Yep.
And that's the opening shot of Return of the King, where Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli finally catch up with the missing 2 hobbits.
Right, that's right.
And they're sitting there
smoking
salted pork. You know, and Gimli's all gruff and pissed off because he wants some salted pork.
Right.
And the hobbits are just sitting there with their pipes making obvious marijuana jokes.
Yeah. A little glassy-eyed, right?
So yeah, there's such obvious jokes in the extended editions.
Oh,
do you know if Peter wanted to put those jokes in deliberately? Because you watch The Hobbit, and Radagast has smoke coming out of his head, and Saruman is admonishing, "Your love of the halfling's leaf has clearly clouded your mind."
Yeah, I'm sure.
So I think Peter's putting in a little bit of cannabis jokes in there. I don't know, but
could be.
The audience laughs every time.
Yeah.
Gandalf says, "Help settle your nerves," and gives it to Sylvester McCoy, and he's got it coming out of his ears. So would you?
Well, that's the best, where it makes you think.
Yes.
You know, which way are they going? That's to me the best part of the movie.
Would you do that? That shot comes across your desk, and the director says, "I need smoke coming out of the man's ears."
Yeah.
I'm going to the Haze King for that shot.
Okay, so when Frodo and
Sam
Gandalf. Where I think it was the first one, they're sitting there smoking at the party.
Yeah.
Right? And he's blowing these smoke rings of ships.
That's Bilbo and Gandalf,
Bilbo, sorry.
Yeah,
sorry. And was that really a ship, or were they hallucinating that? You know what I mean? I mean,
you're blowing my mind right now.
You're blowing our minds.
Well,
we've watched this film for 13, 14 years. We've never thought of it that way.
No,
really?
because you can read it as he's a wizard and he can make these magical things.
Yes.
Or they're high and they're just imagining.
I've never read that.
Because they're just slowly sitting back and
And what's his line? Gandalf, my friend, this will be a night to remember.
Yeah.
You know, it's so funny.
Yeah.
Northerner in the chat room says Tolkien would totally choke if he heard drug jokes.
Probably.
I'm very
because it's very Christian, Lord of the Rings.
Well, and very Catholic in many ways. But Professor Tolkien was not down with the youth culture of the day.
No.
And they were tromping through. They would no. Tolkien had hippies tromping through his rose garden, peeking in his windows, looking at his wife Edith and himself while he was trying to work on grading papers and working on stuff. And he was not down with the youth culture at all. Yeah, Pete, you're right. Professor Tolkien would not be pleased, even with the slightest little joke. But I swear to you, I think Peter's sense of humor is also because we know that Ian McKellen, is a legendary, weed smoker, just like Seth Rogen, thank you. And so I think Peter's playing little jokes for Ian to play.
Could be.
I think that's part of the joke. Anyways, but not to upset the Tolkien fans.
But it's modernized to our day too. I mean, but
yeah.
So there were a lot of changes from the books to the movies on Lord of the Rings, and but from the people making the film, they're not looking at that. It's just like, we're trying to make whatever he wrote and whatever they filmed, we're trying to make it the best it can be.
And most enjoyable movie, and with little jokes, and if it was a big dry film, you wouldn't like it as much, So yeah, there's probably some Easter eggs, that Peter planted throughout the show.
A hidden Mickey.
Yeah.
No.
But a lot of people, because the Lord of the Rings became so beloved, it won all the awards and billions of dollars.
Yes.
People have rose-colored glasses of history, like, oh, those movies are perfect.
Right.
But the Hobbit comes out and like, he changed this and he changed that. There's no girl elves, in the book, and but he made all these changes.
It's not
in the Lord of the Rings.
It's not necessarily the issue that you have a girl elf, a female elf. Thank you. But it's what you do with this new character. It's what you do with this new character. I find a lot of good fans who are friends of mine, and even fans I don't know, are universally appalled when one of the dwarves says, "Aren't you going to search me? I could have anything down my pants."
Right.
That's the kind of joke that wouldn't show up in the Lord of the Rings.
Right. You got to tune it.
Jim is right that Peter's really probably taking a whole different approach to the Hobbit and a much lighter touch.
Right.
Obviously, he's taking a much lighter touch to it. I think.
And talking about the look, of Lord of the Rings too.
Comparing them,
And you know, granted, Alan Lee worked on The Hobbit, but it was amazing working with Alan Lee, and there was a sort of a conceptual artist, Jeremy Bennett, and they were the two guys basically. They were churning out the artwork, and you know, Jeremy Wood, who now works at Steam, so it's sort of cool.
Okay, yeah.
What?
Yeah. So all you Steam nerds out there, he's sort of getting some of his art in there. Cool. But he would do these little sketches. Probably each one of his sketches are probably about this big, right? And they were painted, so they sort of gave us the color palette. But they literally probably took him 2 minutes to paint. I mean, it would just be these colors, you know, like 2 red lines and 1 orange line, and there was Mount Doom. You know, he was just fantastic of creating these sort of gestural paintings that you got instantly. You know, it's like when you look at a hyper real painting and then you get to right into it and it just like smudges. You know, you can barely see it. Well, this is sort of the same thing. You took this thing and went back and it looked absolutely real, but when you got to it, it was just these big brush marks. It was fantastic, you know.
Wow.
And we would take these things and stick them into our unfinaled shots, just to use as artwork in the background where we were working towards that, you know. But then same thing with Alan Lee. You know, Alan, you know, did a lot of the drawings for the books, right?
Yeah.
So you know, that's what we took our aesthetic cue off of, is what he was. Here's the cave troll.
You're starting from excellence.
Yeah, starting from excellence, exactly.
Yeah.
And you know,
absolutely.
and he was amazing. I remember this one meeting, and we're all sitting in the boardroom, and Peter's there, and we're talking about the cave troll, and you know, the table's up here. And Peter's explaining to Alan what he thinks the cave troll would be, and he's saying, oh yeah, it should have a big nose and a wart, and you see Alan underneath the table just sort of, okay, and the wart and, you know, thing. And then Peter says, yeah, okay, so I guess we covered that enough. He says, you mean something like this? And he'd hold up this drawing, and it looked like a photograph. Wow. like a sketch, you know, but he said, well, yeah, that's it. That's exactly it. You know? I mean, he was just so good. He knew, you know, what every doorknob should be, what every, you know, creature should look like, and you just went.
There was nothing you couldn't throw at Alan Lee and say, create this. And
no,
he would just,
he had it all. He had the world in his head.
Oh my God!
That's what an asset.
Yeah,
yeah. John Howe and Alan
and John Howe. Sorry,
they're great.
Yeah.
We can walk down the aisles here at Meltdown Comics, and you can find half a dozen board games and card games with all feature illustrations of John Howe.
Yeah,
doing Middle Earth.
Yeah.
They license his work for all these games.
Yeah,
it's really good stuff.
Yeah,
I'm a big fan of both of those guys.
Yep.
And we got to meet all of them the first night that we met and made friends.
Right.
And all the succeeding years, because TheOneRing.net, for those of you guys who are next gen and you weren't there with us 12 or 13 years ago, we hosted and produced a big Oscar event so that the fans could have a big, you know, formal event and do a red carpet thing.
It's just a fan thing.
Just for fans.
Awesome.
And they all the filmmakers and the creative talent surprised us by coming down the road from leaving the Academy Awards ceremony, and they came to visit everybody. And you guys brought your Oscars and said, "Here, you can hold these." And all the fans were like, "Wow!" And you got your first wave of fandom at that party.
Okay, I'm gonna let you know. I skipped the Elton John party for that.
No way, really?
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
So,
serious.
But I didn't go. I left before the Vanity Fair party ended.
Okay.
So,
awesome.
Tell us who made that decision? Did you guys make it as a group? Like you're at the Oscars and you're like, all right, what do you guys want to do now?
Yeah, who makes that decision?
Oh no, seriously, we had parties to go to. I mean, you had the golden key that night. You could go to you could walk into any door you wanted to.
Like talk to anybody.
In fact, it was funny. We were all in the limo, and you know, we're pulling into the Vanity Fair. And they close off all the streets around the Vanity Fair party. And so we're in the limo, and the sheriff was there, and he's like, no, turn this way, you can't come in. And I think there was 3 or 4 of us. We stuck our Oscars out the sunroof, and he goes, come on in. So it was awesome. But yes, no, we did. We all sort of knew that there was, you know, a lot of people that really enjoyed the movie, and then we wanted to go be part of that, you know, and so that's why we all went there. It wasn't a group decision.
Really?
It was just kind of like,
our friends at Badali Jewelry had given you good luck pins.
Yeah.
Every year you got a good luck pin.
I just saw one the other day. The red. Is it the 2 Towers? I think.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's so cool.
Was that your first
thank you,
kind of like you obviously you were still working on the other 2 movies, you know, like how often did you come up for air and like go out and interact with just a fan or general audience? Like, did you sit in the movie theaters a few times? Like,
oh yeah,
to get a taste of how fans were.
That scene didn't work.
Yeah,
that could have played better. We should have done that.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, we did have a real short schedule, so we would finish. One of the like, let's say the Fellowship, we'd finish that around December 1st, right? And the premiere was like December 10th or something like that.
Yeah.
And then to get ready for the Academy Awards, there's this thing called the Bake Off, where all the big films. Yeah. And that's like in January. So we had to start editing a reel together for that, and you put together a little brochure of how you did things. So that went from like mid-December to beginning of January, I think, is when you had to turn it all in. Then we got little breaks in there, but then after that the DVD would start up for the Fellowship. So we were overlapping. So we were doing the DVD for the Fellowship or for any other show we worked on, and Peter was adding whole new scenes, and it's like so it wasn't just like, let's tweak this. It was like whole other.
Was there anybody there to say, no, we have 2 other movies to make?
No.
That's
yes,
awesome.
Peter. It's like, and it's true. It's like it was the same thing on Godzilla. It's like, yes, Thomas. If this is what it takes, you give us the money, no problem.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's all you can do. It's like they're paying for it. That's what they want. So you give it to them. But it was the same thing with Peter. I mean, Lord of the Rings did seem like we had a bottomless pit in terms of cash, though. I mean, it seems like I think towards the end, there's a third one. The studio started saying no more, and I remember Peter saying something to the degree of like, well, then we'll just start closing the model shop. And then like a day later, what do you mean you're closing the model shop from the studio? Like, we got the movie. Yeah, but you told me I can't have any more money. Okay, keep the model shop.
That's so funny.
He was the master at that.
Can I ask something I've always wanted to know, and I've never asked Peter this, but you might know. It seems that he was under.
Not tell.
You may not be able to tell. He may still be under a big, long-suffering NDA.
Right.
We don't know.
Right.
But Lord of the Rings was delivered theatrically at a 3-hour running time for the first film and the second film. And I'm not sure, but I'm guessing this was a contractual limitation where Peter had to deliver. And remember, boys and girls, back then they still needed time to strike a 35mm print, like thousands of prints. Nowadays, everything's digital. Everything's digital, and I imagine you have shorter deadline times now, or extended.
Well, it's sort of weird. It's sort of like we have less time now.
Really? Because they want to push you up to the final minute.
Well, because there's other things. There's the stereo conversion.
Oh gosh,
Hope is slowly.
Please, from your lips.
Yes, yes.
No more 3D.
Yeah,
no
so
3D,
it takes valuable resources from visual effects.
Yeah.
Yes.
And my head hurts.
Yeah. I mean, I think there are those films that might be appropriate for it, but as we got to do everything 3D, I don't get it. No.
Yeah.
So there's that, and then we have a big. They had to do all this dubbing, and there's different markets now. Like the Chinese market has to be a different film that's for the Japanese market. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's all these different cuts all over the place.
Yeah, you got to take that out.
And so everybody sort of, every part of the studio. Well, titles, we need 3 weeks for that, and we can't start that until the stereo conversion's done. So it's like 3 months out, they want us all delivered, where we have, and I sort of sit back on there and go, tell me when the movie's out, and I know I'm going to be working on it 2 weeks prior to that, or 3 weeks prior to that.
Isn't that always the way?
It's the way it always works, and you go through this angst, and it's like, the facilities are just banging their heads to get the stuff done.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, okay, we got another week. We got another 2 days. We got another week, and it just keeps going, and you're 3 weeks out.
Yeah.
so just say it.
Exactly.
So anyway.
Well, back to the question about Lord of the Rings. I thought that Return of the King came out at 3 hours 20 minutes. Did Peter go to New Line or go to Bob Shea or anybody and say, please, let me break out of this 3-hour limit.
Could be.
I need the Return of the King to go a little bit longer.
Could be.
And he got an extra 20 minutes theatrically.
Nobody ever said no to him.
No, the
and
pressure.
But you're right.
Pressure from exhibitors was huge. The exhibitors were not happy to have a 3-hour, 20-minute film.
Right.
That means less show times per day,
because they can only show 3 movies instead of 4 movies.
The exhibitors were not happy.
Yeah, so that's what it's all about.
I got a feeling. Do you know anything about that? Did Peter have to really go and negotiate an extra running time?
Well, I don't know. I really don't know whether he had to negotiate. I'm sure there was negotiations because it's for exactly what you're saying, you know.
Yeah.
But I think everybody, you know, there was such a groundswell of love for the movies that they just said, you got to do it, you know.
By that time.
Yeah, exactly. So
yeah.
I think if you did that in the beginning, the answer would have been no, you know.
Absolutely.
And in fact, I think it probably was no. Because we had to cut, you know.
2 hours, 59 minutes, 59 seconds is the running time of the Fellowship of the Ring.
Yeah.
You guys pushed it. I mean, because you had to include time for all the titles.
Right.
And in some cases, fan club credits.
Right.
That were added on in some other editions theatrically.
Now
right?
I go to Godzilla and it looks like fan club credits in the visual effects team. It's just a wall of text.
Yeah, it is.
5 across. Yeah.
For 10 minutes.
Yeah. Those are all those rotoscope artists I told you about.
Every single hair.
Yeah.
Wow.
You can't procedurally do that.
Yeah.
Like
any word from Gareth or others on the team about Godzilla, the sequel coming down the pipe?
I heard that on the net there's a 2 and 3 plan. So and Gareth has it.
All right.
So,
good.
Yeah.
Love it.
The interesting thing though about Godzilla is that the rights are at Legendary, and in between starting Godzilla, they moved from Warner Brothers to Universal. So Legendary's at Universal.
Yeah.
Legendary is Godzilla. So we theoretically could get King Kong versus Godzilla.
Oh, there you go.
You've already got Peter's King Kong ride.
Yeah.
It's there now. Yeah. That's
Yeah.
fantastic.
Sure.
Peter Jackson's King Kong versus Gareth, circles.
Godzilla would win.
Would he?
Yes.
Yeah, Godzilla would win against
Balrog or Godzilla.
Oh, I could get the Balrog in there too.
Well, the Balrog is only this big compared to Godzilla, who's this big.
But Balrog is beast and he's a demigod.
Godzilla would blue breath him.
He would just like.
So I read on this website, FX Guide, that Gareth ended up sending an email to the visual effects guy saying, an email at the end saying, all right, yeah, you won that one, because he resisted the breath sequence for a long time. Is that true?
You mean to the head of the studio?
Yeah. Oh no. Well, I think he wrote an email to the guys on the visual effects team who had kept pushing for the breath sequence, but Gareth was against it. Is that wrong, what I've been hearing? That sounds totally screwy.
Visual effects team.
Yeah? Should I pull
He is the visual effects team. You're top.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, you knew all about that.
We talked about it, and I know at one point Gareth didn't want to bring it out. So we went down that road, and this is one of the things I was telling you that Thomas insisted on.
Oh, yes. Okay.
So, really?
So as Thomas Tull came in at sort of towards the last minute.
No wonder it was such a secret.
And said, we have to have this breath. Yes. And we're like, there's like a month left. We can't do it,
Wow.
And he said, I don't care, we have to do this.
Yeah, it's such a cathartic moment.
It's like even if it's just a couple shots, and he even explained the way Godzilla needed to, sort of draw in, and there's that moment of like heroism over the whole thing, and you just needed him to kick ass at that point, and he was absolutely right. Everybody was dragging and pulling and scratching. No, we don't want to do it. Trying to figure out some other way to do it. But we did it, and it's one of the things that gets the cheers all the time.
Tip of the tail.
Yes.
Like the fans started cheering as soon as it's coming.
Yeah. Well, that was always, there was always going to be part of that blue tail starting up. It was in a different form, I think. But the breath was going to be, I think, held off a bit. So.
It reminded me of the way that he builds up the atomic breath. It reminded me of what Weta did with Smaug. How there's this kind of there's this glow.
Oh, yeah.
That starts low in the body.
Yeah.
All the way up to a projection.
Yeah.
But you guys were working independently of what they were doing.
Yeah.
So it was just great ideas, just kind of fall in the.
Never got any phone calls about how to do a certain thing in Middle Earth. When The Hobbit was in production, did you guys ever get any weird emails or weird phone calls saying, "Well, we're trying to do this and this," and
you mean from
the other team? Who was wasn't it Joe LOTR?
You're talking about from Hobbit?
The Hobbit, yeah. Did anybody
did
from
the Hobbit ever call you?
Did anybody from the Hobbit ever call you?
No. I mean, like I said, that was almost 10 years, 8 years after
Lord of the Rings.
We did Lord of the Rings, and I was on to other things, and at that time, because when I was at Weta, I wasn't working for Weta, I was working for New Line. So I was, as I am today, I'm always part of the studio, so I go as a studio guy, and work with the different stuff. Well, it's good because if you're a studio and you get the show, you can sort of call your own shots, and the director's sort of at your mercy, where, I mean, we're slightly the bad guys, but we're driving the look to help the director out. You know what I mean? So where when it's all done in a studio, they're like, sorry, we can't. There's no money, or where, I know they can do it, and I know how to do it, and luckily Gareth knew how to do it too. So, but and so the Hobbit is its own Weta machine now. Everything's done at Weta.
They just like, how much do you need?
Right.
All right, go make it.
Yeah, we're going to make a digital character.
That's why Andy was second unit. So, was Joe LOTR, where was he on the pecking order on Lord of the Rings?
So he was not there at all for the Fellowship. Okay. So we hired him after he was at ILM, and we hired him because we knew he was working with the texture, the subsurface scattering. And we hired him, for Weta for Gollum. Because we knew Gollum was going to be, and to run the shop afterwards. Because I knew I didn't want to necessarily hang around because it's an island basically. And like I said, we were talking about, I've done comedies and all kinds of other things, and I really enjoy that sort of weird, out of left field sort of creative. What we're doing? What So it's just a lot of different things to do, so which is fun.
Cameron's taking Avatar down to Weta, and he
moved down to Weta.
Three sequels. I mean, the guy. He's trying to sign guys up for 6-year contracts to live on that island.
Why the hell didn't he call the movie Pandora?
Why didn't he call the movie Pandora? Why did he use that generic font?
Well, probably, he founded Digital Domain, right?
Yeah.
And I'd say,
and then Michael Bay bought it and sold it.
And Michael Bay bought it, So I'd say almost about a year after he bought it, I saw a script called Avatar. And
this must have been 96.
And I don't know if it was the same. I don't even remember what the script was about.
Yeah.
But I have a feeling it was out for a long time, and because the technology just wasn't quite there yet.
Okay.
And so they sort of shelved it, and then Jim sort of went on to other things, But I do remember one, and it was sort of a talk, and and when I heard Avatar, I was thinking, the little icons on your computer screen. What? There's going to be a movie about avatars? Yeah. So I think it might have been that in some other, form. So I don't know if that is why they didn't name it.
I know. I mean, he always had that title in mind, and that's what he always claimed. And by the time he had his first drafts of Avatar script, the team at Nickelodeon had not yet even brought out the first season of Avatar: The Last Airbender. So I guess he felt justified that he wanted to keep the original title the whole time. But still, I mean, for the sake of the way the pop culture changed, Avatar to most of us fans means The Last Airbender. Still
right.
Does.
Oh yeah, true. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Still does.
The same year.
Got it. That's right.
Paramount and
that was weird.
Who was it? Who released Avatar? Was it Fox?
Fox. Both Fox.
Okay. Both Fox.
Both Fox.
Fox went to court against Paramount Studios because Paramount wanted its movie Avatar: The Last Airbender, and they just had to drop the word Avatar entirely.
They split the.
This was at the time when M. Night Shyamalan was unfortunately in charge of the Last Airbender film project.
Oh, okay. So Airbender was Paramount.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Last Airbender was Paramount, which is Nickelodeon, which is Viacom. Viacom, it's all structured under Viacom.
Right.
So, anyways, that's the deal with that. So, anyways, it's
we're
Listen to the pop culture talk on this show.
Coming up on time, but
We've had such a lovely talk.
I had one question about just kind of the visual effects industry. We talked a lot about the industry, but you've worked with many different visual effects houses. You know, from Weta, MPC, Frame Store.
Right.
Do each of the effects houses have certain capabilities that are unique to them? Like, what makes Weta? I guess is my question.
Well, you know, I think Weta's sort of an overall. We can do anything. You know, they do. You know, creatures great. They do environments great. You know, they can do a lot. You know, the problem is getting the right teams. It's always who do you have working on the project. You know, it truly does come down to the artist. You know, and that wave sort of comes and goes. Like you know, a couple years ago, I would never have thought of MPC as a creature shop. You know, and they did Godzilla now, and it's great. You know, and they did Wrath of the Titans. You know, so you can sort of consider them, but you know, that wave may go, and there may be another. You know, DNEG might come out and start doing great creatures. You know, so you're always sort of riding the best thing. You know, but I think Weta, you know, and ILM are sort of overall, we can do a lot of the stuff, right? And then as you sort of go down the pecking order, there's different facilities. DNEG's great for like environments, double negative. Yeah. Great for environments, and I mean there's shots. You know, we talked about the creature in Godzilla, but there's all these other shots in the beginning which doesn't look like any effects, and it's all effects. Like when they're on that boat on the aircraft carrier, that's all digital. The conning tower behind them, and the when you look out and you see all the jets right behind them, that's all digital. That was basically a parking lot that we shot on a green screen.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah,
wow. That's like Star Wars level stuff.
Like
shoot the
no, you would never notice what was added, or you know, it's.
And what didn't Zoic do some stuff on Godzilla? I thought I saw Zoic.
No, not that
I just see. Maybe I saw Zoic on Maleficent or something like
Could
that.
be.
Zoic.
We had MPC, double negative. Scanline did the big tsunami sequence, which they're fantastic for water, so that's who you go to, you know. Yeah. Among other things, now they're getting good at all different things.
Was Rhythm and Hues in play?
No, Rhythm and Hues was one of those. As they're going under, you can't really commit to them. You know, you don't know what's going to happen. So I remember that it was one of those. Well, maybe, but you know, we should not go there yet. You know.
Frame Store?
No Frame Store. We used Hammerhead as a lot of smaller shops than Hammerhead. We had our own in-house company called Pixel Pirates, which was basically the largest they grew to was like 5 people. So normally it was like 2 to 3 people.
And they're doing a Godzilla.
And they actually did the most shots of any vendor. So MPC did like 350 and double negative did like 400, and they did like 500 shots. But it was all like, you know, we need to remove this wire, or we want to put different text on here, or, you know, all the little cleanup things. But it's still 500 shots. It's a lot of work, you know.
It is a lot.
And Weta is one of those houses, one of the few houses that can just do everything.
And Weta did a little sequence on it. So when you see
they didn't just do art.
Yeah, when the Muto comes out of the water and he has the ship in his mouth, right, and then he flies away, and then the next shot he's flying in and he lands on the roof, and you see the roof crash. Yeah. And then you look out and you see this big smoke sort of coming down, and it's the female Muto coming. Yeah. And that's where he passes the missile to her, basically.
Yeah, they kind of
kiss. She rubs it on her belly to kiss a little bit. That was all Weta.
So they did the kiss.
They did the kiss. So they did when he flew up, and then he kissed, and then the big smoke sort of filled the screen because she was digging her hole to bury the eggs.
Was that your direction to Weta? More smoke.
Haze it up. It's always haze it up. Exactly. Yeah. Always. It's like, not him again.
Let me ask you some quick questions.
Okay.
Okay. Terry Gilliam or Tim Burton? Real quick flash question. Tim Burton, definitely. Yeah. Okay. All right. Next question. Wii or PS4?
PS4.
Oh, okay. All right. Next question. Frodo or Sam?
Frodo.
See? All right, see? There you go. And
favorite Lord of the Rings film?
I was going to actually ask... I was going to ask something
First thing that came to mind.
Yeah, well, first one.
I can't. I can't. I literally, I can't.
I can't pick it's Sophie's Choice.
No, because to me, each one is so great in its own way. You know, the Two Towers is about the two Hobbit. You know,
Two Towers.
So maybe the Two Towers. Maybe the Two Towers.
It's good. It's
that
good.
one's my favorite.
What's your favorite Ray Harryhausen film? Your favorite Ray Harryhausen film?
Oh God.
Seriously, because this is, I'm sure, someone who inspired you a lot when.
Wow.
When you're in your.
I hate to say, I didn't. Look at that a whole lot.
Oh, you didn't?
Yeah,
okay.
my big heroes were Stanley Kubrick, 2001.
Oh yeah.
I saw 2001 like 50 times when I was in 8th grade and all that. So.
Oh yeah.
I sort of was more into that. Godzilla. I remember watching Godzilla when I was, a little kid, like 6 or 7, and I remember, we're talking about the guy in the big suit, the suit. Yeah. It was not a guy in a suit back then. It was this ferocious monster. Now you look at it and it's a guy in a big suit knocking boxes down. But back then, when it was new, basically, it was a little weird and frightening.
Very, How cool.
Yeah.
So you grew up on original.
Toho
Godzilla films.
Yeah.
Never dreaming that someday.
Nope.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
That's so cool. Digital or film?
Digital. 100% digital.
All the way to projection.
Yeah, I'm totally for it.
3D conversion or 3D shooting?
Conversion.
IMAX shooting or IMAX conversion? Have you done an IMAX one?
I would say conversion. I've seen shows of mine converted, and it looks great.
Yeah.
As opposed to, it's always about the shooting thing. You just always get locked down with these giant cameras, and it's the same with stereo.
Yeah.
You really get locked down, and conversion in stereo and IMAX is just so good these days. It's like, why go through all that hassle and lock yourself down?
What if somebody said, I want to go and do something really old school. I want to do something 70 millimeter. And what if some really creative person who had the chutzpah to bring this project and said, let's film in 70 millimeter for real? Would you say yes to that?
Yeah, if it makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Cool.
Interesting Godzilla moment. We almost shot. There was a sequence that was cut out, which is now replaced with the title sequence of all the weird drawings and things at the beginning.
Yeah.
So there was a sequence called the Bikini Atoll sequence.
Yeah. They used that in one of the trailers.
Yeah, exactly. And it was basically, getting the islanders off the island to let the nuclear bomb off, right?
Yeah.
And so originally Seamus was going to shoot that in film IMAX.
Wow.
Oh,
okay.
I see what he was doing.
Yeah, because he was going to make it look old and film it.
Cool.
But Kodak was closing at the time.
Oh yeah.
Deluxe just closed their lab. He said, I looked into it. He would have had to get it processed. He would have had to ship it to France or something like that. So it was just purely the unavailability of film products, processing film,
I heard a huge story on NPR just the other day about all those people who just left those jobs and they're looking for work.
Yeah.
Right now.
Yeah.
But for many, many decades, they've had such a reliable niche of always striking prints, color by Deluxe.
Yeah.
That you'd see at the end of every film.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I went to
the end of an era in Hollywood, actually.
When I was in Toronto, I visited Deluxe Labs up there.
Yeah.
And before Deluxe Labs used to be like a 6-story building, taking up an entire city block.
Yeah.
He pointed over to this little cabin and he said, "There's our lab now." And what it was DCP, these just, I don't know how many terabyte disk drives.
Yeah.
And he said this one's going to go to the theater, the Cineplex theater.
Holy
and they're just
smokes.
DCP drives now. And they just have, a bank of them, and they're all, burning them and checking them, and they're all watermarked and all that. It was very interesting. It's like, wow, that's it now.
That's fascinating.
And soon it'll be these.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Cinema, 4K cinema. Let's just who's got the iPhone?
Yeah.
Back in 2001, there was a Wall Street Journal article about you, I think, and you had in your pocket an iPod, and you were using it to transfer files.
Oh yeah.
Remember that?
Yeah.
At the time, the iPod had a rotary disc inside.
Yeah.
They're not made that way anymore. They're all flash drives now.
Yeah,
but
it had a little drive.
Yes, that was a rotary disc inside that old iPod. And the Wall Street Journal was commenting on the technology wave changing, that you had such power to have on a plane Jim Rygiel with this iPod in his pocket, and there wasn't music tracks on it. There were files for Lord of the Rings.
No, it's even funnier than that.
Okay. I want to hear this.
So you're right. It's the iPod.
Yes.
And we were in New Zealand, and Peter was at Pinewood Studios, and he had a house. And he had a house just across the street from Pinewood Studios.
Yeah, that's right.
And
they were scoring, right?
They were scoring there. That's right.
Right.
And at that time, the technology, we could send it around the world, but they couldn't get it across the street to his house. So we had to stream it every day, because we were using what's now known as CineSync, which another thing we developed at Weta, basically. So
I can't even imagine that, because all the studios used to be connected to all the effects houses with
not back then. Yeah, so this was a 32 gigabyte drive, basically, and that's all we could transfer every night. And we would, I forgot how long it would take, hours to transfer.
Wow.
And so we'd send it across to this iPod, and then our IT guy would unplug the iPod at Pinewood, drive out on the street, around the block, come into the back end, and literally end up where he plugged it in, but just on the other side of the fence. And then he went into Peter's house and plugged it in there, and that's where we'd have our CineSync session.
So funny.
We had to have duplicate files on each end.
I love it.
Yeah, it was like Green Acres, right? Where they had to climb up the telephone pole to answer the phone.
Yeah, I know, exactly like that.
So what you're saying is Steve Jobs made the Lord of the Rings possible.
He was a little does he know, but he was a big
Wow, that's amazing.
Well, everybody in the chat room is like, please put this on YouTube. There's so much info we need to rewatch this.
Yeah, there's a lot of great stories and anecdotes from our friend Jim Rygiel.
One question from Christopher: is Christopher Nolan a director you'd like to work with?
Yes. But he has his little group of people that's locked in there. Yeah, and that's Double Negative, and they do great work.
Yeah.
And,
Interstellar looks really interesting.
I haven't seen any of that yet. Is it?
Have you heard it's interstellar travel,
right?
But they've consulted with all the astrophysicists, at all the major universities.
Right.
What would a wormhole? How would it operate, and how would it look to the? So there's something fascinating.
I mean, we all know what Christopher does. It'd be great to work with him. He's does amazing work, But I heard he doesn't use any digital. He does it all practical.
Yeah.
Until the city folds over itself.
Exactly. Oh, how do I do that? Yeah.
But anyway. You know what else looks intriguing? The Wachowskis had been gearing up their marketing campaign under the careful guidance of Warner Brothers for Jupiter Ascending. And then suddenly it got canceled for this year's release, pushed next year to 2015.
But they're still working on it.
They're working on it still.
Yeah.
Now, do you have any instincts that might be like, maybe they looked at a recent marketing group and it didn't play well to them, or they really have physical effects to finish, or?
I have no idher. Could be a number of those things.
Really? Well, with a movie that big,
I've heard of shows being pushed back because of an actor did poorly. and they don't want it back to back.
Previous movie.
Yeah.
Wow. No.
So they sort of wait till he goes away, and
Oh. Yeah. I gotcha. Well, there's no ill will in the marketplace for Channing Tatum or
I
Mila
don't know.
I'm just saying, can do no wrong.
There's many reasons why they push it.
But can you imagine a huge, big release like that pushed 6 or 8 months past?
Yeah.
That doesn't happen to you too often professionally.
No, I can't think of it.
Yeah, see?
That interests me. We're pushing it up.
Yeah. I need less time.
Yeah. I mean, we need to underscore to our audience that this is a high stakes, high gamble situation where studios are putting down a hell of a lot of money on what you'd call the biggest high-risk investment in town. Either you pay off in beautiful dividends, or you've lost $300 million without the cost of marketing and prints and advertising.
And you can deliver the movie that the director wants in the budget that the studio gives, and that's one thing that you've been. All your movies have been delivered on time.
Absolutely.
They look great.
You and Clint Eastwood. Famous for delivering movies on time.
That's what I like to work with, Clint Eastwood.
Isn't he awesome?
There you go,
He's great. I love that. Looking forward to Jersey Boys, actually.
Yeah. No, he does all. He's the same thing. He does like a big cornucopia of different types of films.
He does.
Like.
Yeah, like let's do that. Let's do that.
Really
but you were talking earlier about different. If people get kicked off projects, Jon Favreau had Jersey Boys for like 8 months, and he did all this pre-work and stuff like that, and then. Things
whatever.
happen.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not a knock on the director that gets fired or the actor that gets replaced. Like Aragorn was replaced. Right before she. It's not a knock on anybody. True. It's just that you look at the big picture and you're like, it's the big picture.
I agree. Yeah. That's fascinating to me. I mean, you're in a fascinating business, and I really admire what you've been doing. Organic web shooters or mechanical web shooters?
Organic.
There you go. That's my last question. That's my last question for Jim Rygiel tonight. You've been an excellent.
Thank you.
Rygiel or Rygiel?
I've take it anyway. It's Rygiel.
It's Rygiel.
But I've been called Rygiel many times. So
I've been butchering it this whole time.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. It was great.
Dude, thank you. Always a pleasure.
Thank you to all the fans for your great questions, and
thank you to Meltdown Comics for hosting us here in this excellent studio.
You should shoot it that way. I like the Bob's Big Boy over there.
There's Bob's Big Boy with his face on it. Home of Nerdist, who's owned by Legendary, who produced Godzilla.
Yes,
and
Mr. Chris Hardwick and the Nerdist guys are right upstairs doing their podcast now.
Cool.
Like a few feet away from us. We're all together in this close-knit realm of geekery.
We'll catch you next time on Torn Tuesdays, every Tuesday, 5 p.m. Pacific, at TheOneRing.net/live.
Pay attention, Marvel, Disney. When you guys are ready to do Doctor Strange, call Jim Rygiel. And that's pronounced Rygiel.
Rygiel, yeah.
Got it? All right, thank you. Bye, guys. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Yep, thanks.
Awesome.
Right,
always.
Cool.
Yay.
Yeah, it was fun.